Chapter 296. F***CK The Black Heaven sect is too arrogant. Yeah, they're arrogant during the competition, and they'll be even more arrogant after the competition. No, I must find a way to teach them a lesson. Sigh, the Black Heaven sect is so powerful now. Who else has the ability to make them suffer? This is too difficult. If there's still a way. At that moment, a cold smile appeared on Lei Mingtian's face. Everyone looked at him. Come, let's talk somewhere else. Lei Mingtian said, and everyone left the Four Seas Inn. Sigh, the tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Chief Wang looked at Lei Mingtian and the others as they left, then looked at the Black Heaven sect members in the inn who were having a good time. He could not help but sigh. Inside the inn, all kinds of wine and delicacies were laid out on the table. Murong Xian and the others were beaming with joy. Don't drink too much, we still have the competition tomorrow. Nangong Huang looked at everyone and said worriedly, I'm happy. Murong Xian put down his wine jar and laughed. Yeah, Nangong Huang, you left early so you didn't see the faces of those sect leaders today. They were as black as the bottom of a pot. Junie added. Hearing this, Nangong Huang was indeed a little regretful. Such an earth-shattering gamble was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. How could he miss it? Let them drink, I have a hangover pill here. Chu Kuangren smiled at Nangong Huang. Since the sect leader has spoken, let's all drink. Murong Xian laughed. Nangong Huang shook his head helplessly, then he said to Chu Kuangren, Sect leader, tomorrow is the fourth segment of the championship. It's the team competition, the last segment of the group competition. With our current points, we're basically guaranteed to stand out. Under such circumstances, the other orthodoxies in Group Delta might do something out of line in order to save face. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly at Nangong Huang's words. This is foreseeable, but it's at this point that we can test the results of your training over the past few months. Let them come, we're not afraid at all. Murong Xian laughed. The others also had confidence in their eyes. They had prepared far too much for this championship. Under Chu Kuangren's training, they had even narrowly escaped death many times. If they did not win this championship, they would be letting themselves down, and they would be letting down Chu Kuangren, who had been worrying about them for the past few months. Sect leader, just you wait. In order to thank you for your training over the past few months, we'll give you the championship of this hegemony competition as a gift. Murong Xian said with determination. Then I'll be waiting. Chu Kuangren smiled. He himself did not care about the championship, but this championship was a chance for Murong Xian, Nangong Huang, and the others to hone their skills. If they could win the championship, it would be a great encouragement to them, and it would help them establish a brave and diligent Taoist heart. This kind of mental breakthrough was very important to their future cultivation. It was more precious than any elixir. At the same time, this was also the reason why the other orthodoxies felt threatened and dissatisfied with the Black Heaven sect's strength. The members of the Black Heaven sect were too domineering, and this had dealt a heavy blow to the Taoist hearts of the other sky prides. It was very likely that their Taoist hearts would be clouded and become traumatized. In the best-case scenario, their cultivation would be hindered, and in the worst-case scenario they might even develop inner demons. In the first city at the arena of the championship, the orthodoxies entered the arena one by one. Just like the past few days, the audience seats were filled to the brim. The only difference was that the majority of the audience was more concerned about the Black Heaven sect than the championship itself. They wanted to see if the Black Heaven sect could continue to be so strong and finish the championship in an invincible manner. I guess before the championship started, no one would have thought that the Black Heaven sect could come this far. It's just unbelievable. Yeah, the world only knows that Chu Kuangren is in the Black Heaven sect, but very few people pay attention to the others. As time goes by, everyone has developed a misconception that besides Chu Kuangren, everyone else is not worth mentioning. The Black Heaven sect's performance has given everyone a slap in the face. Look, the Black Heaven sect is here. As the Black Heaven sect entered the arena, countless people chanted their name. Meanwhile, Murong Xian, Nangong Huang, and the others held their heads high. Some of them even opened their arms to greet the audience proudly. The mouths of the other orthodoxies twitched when they saw that. The limelight of this championship was completely stolen by the Black Heaven sect. Aside from the Black Heaven sect, the other orthodoxies were reduced to the background. In the arena, the 13th prefect was no longer in the judge's booth. Perhaps he had lost so badly yesterday that he was no longer in the mood to host the championship. Instead, it was the 12th prefect who was explaining to the audience. The fourth segment of the championship is also the last segment of the group stage. This is a group battle, and each group will send 5 members each for a total of 30 people. These 30 people will be transported to a certain place to engage in a free-for-all battle. Every time they defeat someone from another orthodoxy, they will be awarded 10 points. This segment will end when only one orthodoxy remains, and the orthodoxy with the highest points will advance to the semifinals. When the 12th prefect finished speaking, he raised his hand and slapped the void. Suddenly, a circle of light appeared, and a surge of spatial energy spread from it. It was obvious that this circle of light was connected to another dimension. It was similar to a secret realm constructed by a sage. Now, may the members of Group Alpha please send their members into the arena, the 12th prefect said. Soon, the 6 sage orthodoxies of Group Alpha each sent out 5 members, and each of them received a bracelet from the 12th prefect. The bracelet was a teleportation device. Once they were sure that their lives were in danger, they could use the bracelet to teleport out of the circle of light. Of course, this would be regarded as a failure. One by one, the sky prides entered the circle of light. More than 10 light screens appeared in the sky above the arena. Each light screen showed a small town in the middle of the night, and a blood moon hung high in the sky. The blood-red moonlight shone on the small town, making it look rather eerie. This was the secret realm, Blood Moon Ancient Towns. The sky prides who entered the circle of light also appeared in different parts of the Blood Moon Ancient Towns. They were not teleported together, but were randomly sent to different corners of the town to prevent a free-for-all from breaking out at the beginning. Otherwise, what would the audience watch if it ended so quickly? Look, the Overlord Sage tribe is going to clash with the Wuxia tribe. They're going to clash and they're going to fight. Someone exclaimed. On the light screen, the sky prides from 2 different orthodoxies met and began to fight. In the end, one of them was beaten so badly that he could not get up. The winner was awarded 10 points. Group Alpha's matches lasted for half a day, followed by Group Beta, Group Gamma, and finally Group Delta, which everyone was looking forward to. Or rather, it was the Black Heaven sect who was in Group Delta. To the crowd, the winner of Group Delta was already confirmed to be the Black Heaven sect, but they still wanted to see what kind of amazing performance the Black Heaven sect had. The 5 representatives of the Black Heaven sect stepped forward and stood before the circle of light. They were Nangong Huang, Murong Xian, Junyi, Jinfian, and finally, Lan Yu. Chapter 297. Look, it's young Emperor Lan Yu. She's also going to participate in this battle. That's great, I can see my goddess's valiant and formidable fighting posture again. Bulsh *T, that's my goddess. Other than Lan Yu, Nangong Huang, and Murong Xian, I wonder how strong the other 2 girls are. The crowd discussed among themselves, anticipating the Black Heaven sect's performance. In the skybox, Qin Wushuang said to Chu Kuangren, Sect leader, I can understand why you sent Junyi, but why did you send Jin Fian? Honestly speaking, she's not even as strong as I am. Wushuang, don't tell me you're unhappy that I didn't send you. Chu Kuangren laughed. I wouldn't dare. I'm just speaking the truth. Jin Fian is no match for you in a one-on-one battle, but she and Junyi are more suitable in this segment. Qin Wushuang was a little surprised. He knew that Chu Kuangren would never speak without evidence. Since Chu Kuangren said so, he must have his reasons. Then I'll wait and see. Qin Wushuang smiled. In the arena, the crowd entered the circle of light after collecting their bracelets. The people from several orthodoxies appeared in the Blood Moon Ancient Towns. The moon looked so round. Jin Fian looked at the blood moon in the sky. The creepy red moonlight made her shiver uncontrollably. She took out a sword. It was a gorgeous fiery red longsword. Jin Fian channeled her spiritual power into the longsword, and it vibrated before the hilt turned in a certain direction. Over there. Jin Fian dashed towards the direction the hilt was pointing at. Meanwhile, in other parts of the Blood Moon Ancient Towns, the sky prides from various orthodoxies had also begun to move. In the spectator stands, the audience was staring at the screen. Look, someone's going to meet them. It's the sky prides from the Thunder Falcon tribe and the 8-Wind Palace. I think they're going to fight. Some of the audience members said expectantly. The others looked like they were ready to watch a good show too. However, on the screen, the sky prides from the Thunder Falcon tribe and 8-Wind Palace did not fight. Instead, they looked at each other, gathered together, and continued to search the Blood Moon Ancient Towns. This scene caused many people to be astonished. What's going on? Why aren't they fighting? They even gathered together, looking like they want to cooperate. It was not just the Thunder Falcon tribe and the 8-Wind Palace. Everyone also noticed that the geniuses from the other orthodoxies did not make a move after encountering them. Instead, they were searching for something in the ancient town. Everyone was dumbfounded. What was going on? They were here to watch a fight, not to watch them make friends hand in hand. The Sky Prides of the Thunder Falcon tribe, 8 Wind Palace, and Linghu family all seemed to be getting along with each other. What were they up to? Wait, don't tell me they want to join forces to kick the Shen sect out first. Suddenly, someone reacted and said. The crowd burst into an uproar. Because from the looks of these people's behavior, it was highly likely that they were planning on doing so. The Black Heaven sect's performance had been too domineering, and they had completely crushed the other orthodoxies. It was not impossible for these people to gang up on them. Thinking of this, countless people cursed him for being shameless. F***ck, this is too shameless. 5 orthodoxies teaming up against the Black Heaven sect? Hey, are you kidding me? This is too much. I think the Black Heaven sect is doomed this time. But what if the Black Heaven sect wins? While many people cursed them for being shameless, they were also looking forward to it. Along the way, the Black Heaven sect had gained the upper hand with their overwhelming strength. Many people thought that the Black Heaven sect would win for sure, but now that something like this had happened, the situation was heading towards an unknown direction. They wanted to see if the Black Heaven sect could create a miracle in this desperate situation. Haha, 5 against 1, that's 25 against 5. Is this the style of the sage orthodoxies here? You've really opened my eyes. Chu Kuangren suddenly laughed out loud. However, everyone could hear the sarcasm in his words. Sect leader Chu, this is what they call the tallest tree in the forest. The Thunder Falcon tribe leader sneered. Sect leader Chu, please don't be angry. It's just a competition. All's fair in war. It's just an alliance. Sect leader Chu, don't tell me you're a sore loser. The other sage orthodoxy sect leaders chuckled. It seemed like they had silently agreed with the Sky Pride's actions. Although it was shameless to do so, the championship's rules did not say that the other orthodoxies could not join forces. The crowd looked at Chu Kuangren, anticipating his furious expression. However, they could not help but be stunned by what happened next. Other than mocking the orthodoxies earlier, Chu Kuangren's expression was calm from the beginning to the end. He did not look the slightest bit angry at all. Seeing this, the sage orthodoxy sect leaders felt like they had punched cotton, unable to exert any strength. Sect leader Chu, you really have a good temperament. To be able to remain so calm at a time like this, your self-restraint is admirable. The Linghu clan head said sarcastically. In other words, Chu Kuangren was pretending. I say, do you dare to make another bet? At that moment, Chu Kuangren suddenly said. The crowd was stunned when they heard that. No way again? Chu Kuangren had won 4.5 billion top-tier soul stones in the last round, and they had yet to recover from the pain. Now, Chu Kuangren wanted to make another bet with them? The sect leaders looked at each other, unsure if they should agree to it. Logically speaking, the Black Heaven sect should have no chance of winning against such a desperate situation. However, in the previous round, the crowd also thought that Murong Xian would not be able to defeat Li Yin. Yet he still won in the end. At that thought, the crowd did not dare to act recklessly. What's wrong? Are you afraid? I've won so many soul stones, are you guys so willing to give up on winning them back? Chu Kuangren sneered. Many people were infuriated when they heard that. Alright, I'll make another bet with you. I bet that the Black Heaven sect will not last until the end, so I'll still bet 100 million top-tier soul stones. The Linghu clan head said loudly. He was furious. I want to make a bet too. I don't believe that the Black Heaven sect can turn the tide again. The Overlord Sage tribe, Sky Emperor Palace, and Thunder Falcon tribe also voiced out. The other orthodoxies looked at each other. No one dared to make a bet with Chu Kuangren anymore. If they lost, they would not be able to afford it even if they were sage orthodoxies. Thunder Falcon tribe, Sky Emperor Palace, Linghu clan, and Overlord Sage tribe, it seems that you guys are the only ones left. Very well. Chu Kuangren smiled. Behind him, the few Taoists looked at each other helplessly. My heart won't be able to take it if I stay with you, sect leader. It's just too exciting, Zhuohan said. It turns out that gambling is addictive. Shang Qingxue sighed too. They looked at the light screen. Behind the Blood Moon ancient towns, a few people were heading towards Jin Fian's direction. It seemed that they would meet soon. It seems that the Black Heaven sect will have to eliminate one of them first. The Linghu clan head sneered. Let's wait and see, Chu Kuangren said calmly. I want to see how far you can keep up the act. Chu Kuangren ignored the others. He looked at the light screen and realized that besides Jin Fian, Lan Yu, Murong Xian, and the others were also preparing to face the combined attack of the other orthodoxies. Chapter 298. inside the Blood Moon ancient towns. Jean Fian was looking for someone based on the guidance of her longsword. Suddenly she stopped in her tracks and her eyes narrowed. 3 figures appeared around her. They were the Sky Prides from the Thunder Falcon tribe, 8 Wind Palace and Linghu clan. Jean Fian's mind raced as she quickly figured out what these orthodoxies were thinking. She could not help but chuckle. "What are you laughing at?" The Sky Pride from the Thunder Falcon tribe snorted. "Nothing. It's just that this is the first time I'm being ganged up on by other Sky Prides. I feel a little proud and a little happy." Jean Fian smiled charmingly. So it's a crazy one. Let's go." The Sky Pride from the Thunder Falcon tribe snorted. They attacked from 3 directions at the same time. Sword chi, lightning energy, and fist strength were unleashed at the same time. The long sword at Jean Fian's waist was unsheathed with a clang, and a fiery red sword ray surged out with a scorching heat wave. Although Jean Fian had improved a lot under Chu Kuangren's training, it was still a tough fight for her. After exchanging a few blows, she dashed towards a certain direction. It's no use trying to escape. Everyone in the Blood Moon ancient towns is targeting the Black Heaven sect. Where do you think you can escape to? The 3 Sky Prides immediately gave chase. Jean Fian fought and retreated at the same time. On the other side, Murong Xian and Nangong Huang were also caught in a pincer attack from a few orthodoxies. "Murong Xian, the Black Heaven sect is doomed to lose today." "That's right. You won't be able to pass this round." On a certain tall building in the Blood Moon ancient towns, Lan Yu wore a gorgeous silver-white armor and held the scepter of light in her hand. Her wings were spread out, emitting a white light under the blood moon. An inviolable holy aura filled the void. Around her there were 9 people. These 9 people were from various orthodoxies. Among them were the young emperors Lei Mingtian, Linghu Teng, and Li Yin. "Lan Yu, let me fight you." Lei Mingtian, who was also a young emperor, was the first to attack. Violent bolts of lightning gathered in his palm before he blasted it out. Holy protection. A white barrier of light appeared around Lan Yu. Lei Mingtian's attack was blocked by the barrier of light. Next, Lan Yu raised her hand and unleashed a fist-sized ball of light. "Everyone be careful," Lei Mingtian shouted. Everyone mobilized their spiritual energy in an attempt to block the ball of light. However, the ball of light suddenly exploded in Lan Yu's hand. Rays of dazzling white light exploded, forcing everyone to close their eyes. The moment they closed their eyes, Lan Yu made her move. Taking advantage of the fact that everyone was blinded by the white light, Lan Yu moved through the crowd at a speed that was beyond the perception of her spiritual sense. With every swing of the scepter of light, a genius would be sent flying, with every strike falling face first onto the ground. Not long after, the 9 heavens favorites were sent flying. 3 of them lost the ability to fight and lay on the ground, moaning in pain. So powerful. As expected of the Yao summoning tower, 1 against 100. This kind of strength is indeed powerful. Lei Mingtian couldn't help but say seriously. No matter what, I must make the Black Heaven sect suffer today." Li Yin sneered. He stepped forward and activated the Black Emperor indestructible physique. His entire body glowed with a metallic luster, and he threw a punch that caused the void to rumble. Scorching light. White flames appeared on Lan Yu's body and turned into a giant fireball that smashed through Li Yin's fist energy. The fireball landed on Li Yin's body and sent him flying with the Black Emperor indestructible physique's protection. After Li Yin was sent flying for dozens of feet, he smashed into a wall. The wall caved in from the impact. "It's useless. You can't hurt me." Li Yin stood up and laughed. He had learned his lesson this time. He knew that his weak point had been discovered by the Black Heaven sect, so he no longer used the Black Heaven Divine Spear. That way his weak point would not appear. He could only rely on his indestructible physique to fight his opponent. But then he realized that something was not right. There were white flames burning on his body. Although they could not break through his defense, they were like maggots that could not be removed. Not only that, but the white flames were also continuously weakening his Black Emperor indestructible physique's Taoist rhyme. Although it was very slow, it was very effective. Li Yin's expression changed. "What kind of flame is this?" "The Black Emperor indestructible physique is very powerful. Unfortunately, in the face of the scorching light, it can only be disintegrated." Lan Yu said calmly. "Be careful of this flame. Don't go head-on with it," Linghu Ting said. He leaped into the air and released sword chi to attack Lan Yu from afar. The others did the same. They had the advantage in numbers. They did not need to defeat Lan Yu quickly. As long as they depleted her spiritual energy, victory would eventually belong to them. On the street, Jean Fian was dodging the attacks of 3 Sky Prides behind her. The 3 of them used sword chi, fist energy, and even the power of lightning to attack her. Jean Fian dodged left and right, occasionally counterattacking. If it was a one-on-one fight, she could easily defeat any one of the 3. However, when they teamed up, she was under a lot of pressure. Jean Fian, you can't get away. The 3 Sky Prides chased after her relentlessly. You'll get beaten up if you keep chasing girls like this. Jean Fian laughed. I'd like to see how long you can laugh. The Thunder Falcon Tribe's Sky Pride let out a low growl, and the violent power of thunder gathered in front of him, turning into a thick lightning pillar that blasted out. Jean Fian held her long sword in front of her and blocked it with her sword chi. However, the lightning still sent her flying hundreds of feet away. She crashed into a wall and her face was pale. Over there. Jean Fian did not continue to fight with them. Instead, she headed towards a certain direction. The Thunder Falcon Tribe's Sky Pride was surprised. I can't believe this delicate girl can still run away after taking my attack. Keep going. Let's see where she can run to. The Linghu clan's Sky Pride scoffed. The 3 of them continued their chase. A while later, sounds of fighting could be heard from the direction they were pursuing. Upon closer inspection, they saw a group of people chasing after a woman. The woman was none other than Black Heaven Sect's Taoist, Jun Yi. Ah, what a coincidence. The Thunder Falcon Tribe's Sky Pride laughed. He looked at Jean Fian, who was in front of him, and said, "You shall perish here with your fellow sect members." Jean Fian did not reply and sped up towards Jun Yi's direction. Compared to the 3 people who were chasing after Jean Fian, there were 5 people chasing after Jun Yi. The pressure on her was much greater than Jean Fian's, and it was obvious that she had sustained quite a few injuries. If it were not for the fact that they had been tortured by the sword chi clones during their training, they would have been defeated a long time ago. Jun, Jean Fian called out. Fian, you're finally here. Jun Yi, who was struggling to hold on, was overjoyed when she heard Jean Fian's voice. The 2 of them met up with their backs facing each other. Around them were 8 Sky Prides from different orthodoxies. Anyone with a discerning eye could see the difference in strength between them. Chapter 299. Sect Leader Chu, it looks like your Black Heaven Sect's 2 female disciples are about to lose, Linghu clan head said with a smile. The other sect leaders looked at him too. No one thought that Jean Fian and Jun Yi could turn the tables. The difference in their strength was too great. 2 against 8. Moreover, their cultivation levels were no weaker than Jun Yi and Jean Fian. How could they possibly win in such a desperate situation? The audience was also discussing among themselves. Many of them were feeling sorry for the Black Heaven Sect for being invincible, but they did not expect to be defeated by a few orthodoxies. Yes, they're going to lose. However, it's your disciples who are going to lose. Chu Quangren smiled. The sect leaders could not help but shake their heads and laugh at his words. Wait guys, look. At that moment, someone looked at the light screen in surprise. Jun Yi and Jean Fian, who were originally in a desperate situation, each emitted an incredibly mysterious Taoist rhyme. One was as hot as fire, while the other was as gentle as water. The 2 completely different Taoist rhymes were supposed to oppose each other, but they were now nestled together in a strange way. 1,000 miles true flame heavens. 3,000 gentle water drowns the heavens. Jean Fian and Jun Yi shouted in unison, and terrifying sword chi shot out with the 2 of them as the center. The sword chi was formed by the fusion of 2 completely different Taoist rhymes, and its power was several times stronger than a single Taoist rhyme. Under the impact of this power, the 8 Sky Prides were sent flying. The sword chi that was closest to them had their flesh torn apart, and their bones broken. They lost the ability to fight back on the spot. What's going on? How did their sword chi suddenly become so much stronger? It's a formation. This is some kind of joint attack formation. F***CK, what kind of joint attack formation is this powerful? Their sword chi's power has increased by at least 7 times. The sword chi on Jean Fian and Jun Yi's bodies circulated, and their Taoist rhymes resonated with each other. Under such circumstances, the sword chi that they unleashed individually was 7 to 8 times stronger, and their joint attack was even more terrifying. This is the first time I've used this ever-changing water-fiery yin-yang sword formation against an enemy. Looks like it's quite effective. Jean Fian smiled. She could feel that in the process of resonating with Jun Yi's Tao runes, an endless stream of energy was surging out of her body. Let's deal with them first, Jun Yi said lightly. All right. The 2 women struck at the same time. As he swung his long sword, a large amount of sword chi that contained the Taoist rhymes of water and fire circled in the air. The few sky prides present found it hard to defend against it. Falling in lightning. The Thunder Falcon tribe's sky pride shot out a black thunderbolt. However, it was shattered by a sword chi. The Taoist rhymes of water and fire wrapped around the sword chi, releasing red and blue rays of light that blasted his body. In the blink of an eye, the sky pride from the Thunder Falcon tribe was reduced to his original form. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground, unconscious. Clank, clank, clank. The sound of the guqin reverberated in the void as the young emperor of the Heaven Cord sect, Shao Tianai, plucked at the strings of the guqin in a frenzy. Countless guqin sound blades flew towards the two women. That sounds awful. It's not even 1/10,000th as good as the sect leader. Jin Fian frowned as she and Jun-yi attacked together. The two sword chis overlapped and transformed into a magnificent sword light. Countless zither sound blades were shattered one after another. The sword light slashed towards Shao Tianai, cutting the zither in his hand into two halves and even sending him flying. With just one sword attack, the young emperor Shao Tianai was defeated. This sword formation, known as the everlasting water-fire yin-yang polarity transformation, struck fear into the hearts of all the sky prides present. Not long after, the 8 sky prides were all defeated by the two women. In the arena, all the sect leaders and sky prides stared at the scene in disbelief. They did not expect Jin Fian and Jun-yi to be able to unleash such terrifying power. What kind of sword formation is this? The Linghu clan head gulped. The Linghu clan was also a sword orthodoxy that was as famous as the Black Heaven sect. However, even the Linghu clan head had never heard of such a sword formation, let alone seen it with his own eyes. Rumor has it that Chu Kuangren also has a powerful sword formation called the Four Seasons sword formation. Could he have inherited some formation grandmaster's inheritance? Otherwise, how could he have so many terrifying formations? The Overlord tribe leader said with a serious expression. The others also felt that it was possible the more they thought about it. In the skybox, Qin Wushuang finally understood why Chu Kuangren said that Jin Fian was more suitable than him for this round. It turned out that she could join forces with Jun-yi to unleash such a terrifying sword formation. But sect leader, when did they learn this sword formation? Qin Wushuang asked in surprise. Not long after the training started, I had them learn this sword formation. I even greatly reduced the time they had to fight the sword chi clones. Chu Kuangren smiled. The everlasting water-fire yin-yang polarity transformation sword formation was a starlight grade sword formation that he had obtained from the gacha roll. It required 2 sword cultivators who cultivated both fire-based and water-based swordsmanship to unleash it. It just so happened that Jin Fian and Jun-yi fulfilled this requirement. Since they were both Taoists, their cultivation level and strength were similar, and they were close friends. They had great chemistry. In just over 2 months, under Chu Kuangren's guidance, they could already use this sword formation quite well. Wait a minute, sect leader. The Blood Moon ancient towns are randomly teleported. If they can't find each other, doesn't that mean they can't use this sword formation? Qin Wushuang had another question. Did you notice the swords in their hands? Swords? Qin Wushuang glanced at them. They've changed their swords. They didn't use these 2 swords before. That's right. These 2 swords came from the Black Heaven Sword Mountain and were forged using a material called the yin-yang stone. They are categorized into a yin sword and a yang sword. Both swords can sense each other, so there's no need to worry that they can't find each other, Chu Kuangren said. Qin Wushuang came to a realization. I see. Sect leader, you're such a genius. Everything is under your control. I'm impressed. I'm just making the necessary preparations for the championship. What kind of genius is that? Don't flatter me, kid. Although Chu Kuangren said that, it was obvious from the slight smile on Chu Kuangren's face that he enjoyed Qin Wushuang's flattery. Compared to Chu Kuangren's satisfaction, the Overlord tribe leader, Linghu clan head, and the Thunder Falcon tribe leader had a much worse expression on their faces. They had a feeling that they would lose this time as well. They suppressed their uneasiness and continued to watch the battle. I don't believe that the others can win. That's right. We don't know who'll have the last laugh. They once again turned their attention back to the Blood Moon ancient towns. However, the situation was not as optimistic as they thought. In the ancient towns, the sky prides who had surrounded Lan Yu had almost been defeated. Apart from Li Yin, who was still struggling, the others were lying on the ground, wailing in pain. D***, how is she so strong? Li Yin stared at Lan Yu in disbelief. At this time, Lan Yu had also suffered quite a few injuries. However, with the scepter of light in her hand, her aura was unstoppable and intimidating. Liyin was shocked and felt a sense of fear. Chapter 300. Judgment of Light. Defeat. Lan Yu let out a soft cry as a majestic light-based Taoist rhyme erupted and formed into a white spear in her palm. Runes flowed on the spear, and it emanated a majestic yet destructive aura. The spear shot out like a ray of light in the dark night. Liyin could not dodge it at all and had to take the attack head-on. Boom. A terrifying explosion of energy. Liyin's Black Emperor indestructible physique was already weakened by the light burn. Now that it was hit by the judgment of light, the pitch-black Taoist rhyme on his body instantly disintegrated. The Black Emperor indestructible physique was shattered. Liyin was defeated. After defeating all 7 Sky Prides, Lan Yu could not help but heave a sigh of relief. Her face turned pale and she could not help but half kneel on the ground. Her aura that was initially powerful had also weakened. Obviously this battle had taken a lot out of her. Although there were only 7 Sky Prides, there were 2 young emperors, Linghu Teng and Lei Mingtian, as well as one of the 10 heroes, Liyin. The other 4 Sky Prides were also top-notch young experts in the world. These 7 people together were enough to kill an honorable supreme. Not to mention a veteran honorable supreme. The 5 orthodoxies have joined forces to deal with the Black Heaven sect. Murong Xian and the others must be targeted too. I need to find them as soon as possible. Lan Yu thought to herself. She took out a medicinal pill and swallowed it. An incredibly rich medicinal strength instantly erupted and turned into surging spiritual power that was injected into her already dried-up spiritual mound. With the help of the medicinal pill, Lan Yu's complexion looked much better. She did not bother to adjust her breathing as she slowly converted her spiritual power and left the scene. In the skybox of the battle arena, the Linghu clan head, the Thunder Falcon tribe leader, and the others were dumbfounded. Cheating. Cheating. Lan Yu is cheating. The Linghu clan head yelled. Watch your mouth. How is she cheating? Chu Kuangren said coldly. Lan Yu used a medicinal pill. Isn't that cheating? The rules didn't state that we can't use medicinal pills. You guys can use them too, Chu Kuangren said calmly. Where do we have that kind of pill? A pill that can instantly restore a venerable spiritual power. Only an alchemy grandmaster can refine this kind of pill. Patriarch Linghu said in a deep voice. As an important cultivation resource, elixirs did indeed have a variety of uses. However, most elixirs required a refining process. The battlefield was ever-changing, so how could one use elixirs to recover? Just like the pill that Lan Yu had used, one pill was able to replenish more than half of her spiritual power. This kind of pill was simply too rare. At the critical juncture of life and death, it could be a life. Oh, you don't allow others to use it because you don't have it. Chu Kuangren sneered. You. Patriarch Linghu was rendered speechless. Rumor has it that Chu Kuangren is an alchemy grandmaster. It's very likely that he refined these pills for Lan Yu and the others. No wonder he's always been so fearless. It turns out that he has this trump card up his sleeves. The eyes of the Sky Emperor Palace Master and the Overlord Body Tribe leader sank down. A pill-cultivating grandmaster was way too important for an orthodoxy. Deep down they felt it was inconceivable. Chu Kuangren was so young, yet not only was his combat strength strong enough to kill a sage, but he was also an alchemy grandmaster. Was he still human? Inside the Blood Moon ancient town, Lan Yu was currently looking for Murong Xian and the others. Soon, she heard the fluctuations of battle coming from not far away. She saw Murong Xian and Nangong Huang in a bitter battle. Surrounded by 10 Sky Prides, their bodies were riddled with wounds. Without another word, she joined the battle. Although her spiritual power had not fully recovered after being replenished by the elixirs, it was at least 50 to 60%. Her vast light-based Taoist rhyme instantly erupted and blasted one of the Sky Prides away. At that moment, not far away, a red and blue sword ray intertwined and swept towards another Sky Prides, sending them flying as well. It was Jun Yi and Jin Fian. The 5 Sky Prides of the Black Heaven sect had all gathered. The 5 of them stood together. Even though they were riddled with wounds, their eyes were fearless as they looked at the surrounding Sky Prides who were attacking them. No one can stop the Black Heaven sect. Even if all 5 orthodoxies join forces, what's there to be afraid of? Murong Xian laughed as the spiritual power on his body surged and turned into 7 fireballs that floated in midair like the sun. Come and fight. With a loud shout, the 7 fireballs shot out one after another. Nangong Huang was not to be outdone either. His eyes glowed with divine yin-yang light as he injected sword chi into his eyes, forcing 2 sky prides to retreat. Divine rain of light. Watch out for my sword formation. The divine light energy and the ever-changing water and fire yin-yang sword formation exploded at the same time, sweeping across the entire battlefield. The battle strength of the 5 from the Black Heaven sect shocked the entire audience in the arena. Everyone held their breaths as they watched the battle. Time passed. In less than half an hour. Blood Moon ancient towns under the blood-colored moonlight. Lanyu, Murongxian, Nangong Huang, Junyi and Jinfian were riddled with wounds, but they still stood tall. The murderous aura around their bodies was breathtaking as if they were 5 invincible gods of war. Around the 5 of them, the sky prides from the other 5 orthodoxies were already lying on the ground, moaning in pain. The Black Heaven sect had won a 1 versus 5 battle. In the arena, when the spectators saw this scene and looked at the 5 people who were standing tall, they only felt their hearts surging, and it was difficult for them to control themselves. When the 5 of them walked out of the Blood Moon ancient towns and were transported back to the Blood Moon ancient towns, the entire arena erupted in cheers. Black Heaven sect. Black Heaven sect. Black Heaven sect. At this moment, even though Lan Yu and the others were injured, they were still dazzling in the eyes of the audience. This was the respect and yearning for the strong. Faced with the cheers of the audience, Lan Yu looked fine. Apart from looking a little tired, there were no obvious emotional changes. The others were different. They opened their arms and enjoyed the cheers of the audience, accepting the glory that belonged to them. Especially Jinfian, who was waving and blowing kisses to the audience. She was extremely excited. At this moment, the 12th prefect slowly stood up and gulped. He said with a trembling voice, "Group Delta's 4th round has ended. The winner is Black Heaven sect. A total of 250 points. 250 points. This represented the 25 sky prides who lost to Lan Yu and the others. This was the highest number of points that could be obtained in the 4th round. Other than the Black Heaven sect, no one else could achieve this. This was because no other orthodoxy could force the other 5 orthodoxies to team up against them like the Black Heaven sect did. 250 points, plus the previous 235 points, that's a total of 485 points. This far exceeds the points of the other orthodoxies. The champion will definitely be the Black Heaven sect. That's right, the Black Heaven sect is invincible. This is amazing. I didn't expect such a dark horse to appear in this championship. They've left everyone else in the dust. With Chu Kuangren and these Taoists in the Black Heaven sect, I can't imagine how strong the Black Heaven sect will be in the future. Chapter 301. In the 4th segment, the 5 representatives of the Black Heaven sect had defeated all 5 orthodoxies. That feat had caused a huge uproar among the audience. While everyone was chanting the Black Heaven sect's name, Chu Kuangren went up to them and cast the spring breeze healing technique on them without saying a word. The gentle spring breeze quickly healed the injuries on their bodies. Very soon their exhausted bodies were as good as new. This technique made everyone's heart palpitate. They did not know how many more tricks Chu Kuangren had hidden up his sleeves. The person before them was just too unpredictable. Now, would you like to sign an IOU? Chu Kuangren looked at the Linghu clan head and the others. Junyi's eyes lit up when she heard that. Sect leader, did you make another bet with them? That's right. The Linghu clan head and the others were too enthusiastic. They fought to give me soul stones, so I had no choice but to accept them. Chu Kuangren laughed. Everyone was so angry that their lungs were about to explode. However, they could not do anything about it. How much did you win this time? Junyi asked expectantly. Let me see. The Linghu clan head and I bet 100 million, the Sky Palace Lord 500 million, the Thunder Falcon tribe 300 million, and the Overlord Sage tribe 300 million. That's a total of 1.2 billion top-tier soul stones, Chu Kuangren said with a smile. Everyone's eyes lit up when they heard that. The previous 4.5 billion and the current 1.2 billion would add up to 5.7 billion top-tier soul stones. Even for a sage orthodoxy, that was a terrifying number. 5.7 billion top-tier soul stones. I'm afraid the total value of all the prizes in the championship is only 200 to 300 million top-tier soul stones. Sect leader, you've won 5.7 billion in one bet. That's terrifying. Nangong Huang gulped and said. In the history of the Black Heaven sect, no sect leader had ever achieved such a feat. Not only is the sect leader the youngest in the history of the Black Heaven sect, but he's also the best at making money. That's amazing. Junie was amazed and her eyes were filled with admiration. Then the Linghu clan head and the others signed another IOU under Chu Kuangren's domineering aura. This time, not only them but even the sages behind them were trembling in pain. Everyone, if you want to bet again, feel free to look for me. Chu Kuangren chuckled. Everyone almost vomited blood when they heard that. Next time? Just these 2 times had already greatly damaged their vitality. If there was a 3rd time, they would probably have to pay for the loss of their orthodoxy's base. Everyone, the group stage is over. Next up will be the semi-finals, which will be held in 2 days. The 4 orthodoxies participating in the semi-finals are the Overlord Sage Tribe from Group A, the Tempest Mountain from Group B, the Sky Emperor Palace from Group C, and the Black Heaven Sect from Group D. The 12th prefect's voice came from the judge's booth. Upon hearing that, Chu Kuangren chuckled and said, "This is bad. It seems like these 3 orthodoxies are not very friendly towards our Black Heaven Sect. Don't tell me they're going to join forces against us again? How scary." Although he said that, there was not the slightest hint of fear on his face. Or rather, it was mockery. Indeed, the Overlord Sage Tribe, Sky Emperor Palace, and Tempest Mountain did not have a good relationship with the Black Heaven Sect. Tempest Mountain was one of the best sword orthodoxies in Firmament Star, so there was no lack of friction between them. Chu Kuangren had forced the Overlord Sage Tribe's Grey Grill Sage to sever his own arm, and the young Emperor Chang Tian was even taught a lesson by Chu Kuangren in front of everyone. As for the Sky Emperor Palace, they did not have a grudge against them. However, after 2 bets, even if they did not have a grudge against them, they would be forced to do so. The other orthodoxies had lost 1 or 200 million soulstones, but the Sky Emperor Palace had lost 1.5 billion soulstones and 2 sage weapons. On top of that, all of their cultivation techniques were unconditionally available to Chu Kuangren. However, who could they blame for that? It was their fault for coveting the godly phoenix. Chu Kuangren, I'll see you in the semi-finals. The Overlord Sage Tribe leader snorted before he turned around and left. The Tempest Mountain Sect leader and the Sky Emperor Palace Lord also gave Chu Kuangren a meaningful look before they left with their respective Sky Prides. The championship entered the preparation stage of the semi-finals. The names of the 4 orthodoxies that were participating in the semi-finals had also spread throughout the first city, especially the Black Heaven Sect, who was known by everyone. Currently, in the streets and alleys of the first city, cultivators of all sizes were discussing the Black Heaven Sect's impressive performance in the championship. Lan Yu, Nangong Huang, and the other names were even more well known. On this day, Lan Yu came out of her cultivation state. She sensed the power within her body and murmured, "I can't believe that the continuous battles have pushed me to the threshold of a late-stage honorable." At this point, she was only 1 step away from becoming a late-stage honorable. After that, she would be able to become an honorable. With her talent and Chu Kuangren's years of training, she would probably be able to compete with a boundary sage once she became an honorable. Except for Lan Yu. Nangong Huang and the others had more or less gained some benefits from their battles with the other Sky Prides. Other things aside, their Taoist core alone was enough to keep them in a state of vigorous improvement in their cultivation from now on. 2 days passed. Soon it was over. The familiar entrance, the familiar cheers. After 2 days, Chu Kuangren and the others returned to the arena. Sect leader, look, the 13th prefect is back. At that moment, Junie pointed at the judge's booth and said. Chu Kuangren looked over. At the judge's booth, the 13th prefect, who had left in anger after losing 100 million soulstones to Chu Kuangren, was once again sitting at the judge's booth. Ignore him, Chu Kuangren said. All right. Chu Kuangren looked around him again. He realized that other than the orthodoxies who were participating in the semi-finals, the other orthodoxies were there too. They probably wanted to watch the entire championship before leaving. At the judge's booth, the 13th prefect stood up and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the semi-finals of the Sky Pride Championship. Before the semi-finals begin, I'd like to clarify a few things. Based on the discussions between us and the judges over the past 2 days, we've added 2 more points to the original rules. First, the point system will be abolished. The winner will no longer be determined by the number of points earned. From now on, all orthodoxies' points will be invalid." At that, the audience was in an uproar. Everyone could tell who this rule was aimed at. It was the Black Heaven sect, which had the highest points among the orthodoxies. F***CK me, what kind of rule is this? They worked so hard to earn their points, why should it be abolished? This is so unfair. Sigh, the organizers can't do anything about it. Who would have thought that the Black Heaven sect could earn so many points? If they don't abolish this rule, there's no way to compete at all. They could have just given the championship to the Black Heaven sect. That's true. The Overlord Sage Tribe, Tempest Mountain, and Sky Emperor Palace had no objections to the abolition of the point system. In fact, they were all in favor of it. Otherwise, they would not be able to compete with the Black Heaven sect in terms of points. It's fine to abolish the point system. I think it's meaningless to win too easily anyway. However, if you just abolish the points we worked so hard for, it'll be hard to explain without some compensation, right? Chu Kuangren said to the 13th prefect. Of course. As compensation, the Black Heaven sect with the highest points will have the right to choose their opponent in the semi-finals, the 13th prefect said. In other words, I can choose any orthodoxy to be my opponent, right? That's right. This compensation is as good as nothing. Chu Kuangren sneered before he swept his gaze across the three orthodoxies of the Overlord Sage Tribe. Let's pick the Overlord Sage Tribe then. Chu Kuangren did not have any intention to target them. He just randomly picked one. Chapter 302. Oh, just as well. My Overlord Sage Tribe will not let you get past the semi-finals, the Overlord Sage Tribe leader said after glancing at Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren yawned. I've heard too many harsh words. It's better for you to prove your strength with your actions. There's one more thing. At this moment, the 13th prefect continued, for the sake of fairness, all medicinal pills are prohibited in this competition. Upon hearing that, Chu Kuangren's gaze turned cold. First, you're going to abolish the point system, then you're going to ban the use of medicinal pills. Do you want my Black Heaven sect disciples to tie up their hands and feet to compete with you? Please don't be angry, sect leader Chu. This is all for the sake of fairness in the competition. After all, the Black Heaven sect's pills are really against the rules for the other participants, the 13th prefect said calmly. Sect leader, even without the pills we can still win this competition. Just you wait, Murong Xian said with determination. That's right. There's no meaning in winning too easily. Nangong Huang added. They had long decided to bring the champion of the championship back to the Black Heaven sect as a token of gratitude to Chu Kuangren. Therefore, no matter what difficulties they encountered, they would not retreat. Chu Kuangren took a deep breath, glanced at the 13th prefect and said, You guys are the judges. Whatever you say goes. He chose to respect the decisions of Nangong Huang and the rest. If there are no objections, then let the competition begin. This semi-final will be a best-of-3 system. Each side will send out 3 people, and whoever wins 2 matches first will advance to the finals. The 13th prefect said. The rules of the competition were very simple. Very soon, the semi-finals began. Sect leader, let me go first. Nangong Huang twisted his neck and said eagerly. All right. Chu Kuangren agreed. On the arena, Nangong Huang's opponent was the Overlord Sage Tribe's Bachelor Sage. Chu Kuangren was quite familiar with that person. It was the Holy Sun Chang Yuan whom he had met on the street that day. The Eye of Revelation opened. Chu Kuangren analyzed the strength of both sides. Nangong Huang's winning rate is as high as 80%. He smiled. It seemed that this so-called Holy Sun Chang Yuan was also a rookie. Come. Nangong Huang took out his long sword and hooked his finger at Holy Sun Chang Yuan. Humph, arrogant. Holy Sun Chang Yuan roared, and a black violent airflow suddenly burst out from the surface of his body. This was the Overlord physique unique to the Overlord physique clan. The Overlord physique was one of the 3,000 physiques. Although it was not comparable to the top-notch Taoist physique, the probability of it appearing in the Overlord Sage Tribe was very high. Almost every Sky Pride could obtain the Overlord physique. This was a very terrifying thing, and it was also the main reason why the Overlord Sage Tribe could dominate the Black Warrior domain. Brilliant heaven-shaking fist. Holy Sun Chang Yuan knew that Nangong Huang's strength was extraordinary, so he immediately used one of the most powerful sage techniques in his clan. He threw a punch and the violent strength chi formed a torrent, wrapped in Taoist rhymes, wind and sand like a black tornado, blasted towards Nangong Huang. In the face of such a powerful attack, Nangong Huang did not panic. Instead, yin-yang divine light circulated in his eyes. The power of the yin-yang god eye was activated. Yin-yang divine light, ocean wave sword art. A surge of yin-yang divine light and endless Taoist rhymes merged with his sword chi, and the surging sword chi gushed out like a tide. In the face of such power, Holy Sun Chang Yuan's sage technique was obviously inferior. At the moment of impact, his fist force could not advance any further. Instead, it was continuously pushed back by the impact of the sword qi. How is this possible? Holy Sun Chang Yuan's expression changed drastically. However, after the power of the sword qi broke through the fist force, it was already right in front of him. He quickly activated the Overlord Physique's ability, and spiritual energy mixed with the unique black aura of the Overlord Physique formed a black-golden barrier in front of him. Boom boom boom. The sword qi kept hitting the barrier. The barrier let out a cracking sound, and in less than 2 breaths' time, cracks appeared on it before it finally shattered. Holy Sun Chang Yuan was blasted back dozens of feet by the impact of the sword qi. Although he was not seriously injured, he was still in a rather sorry state. More importantly, Nangong Huang followed up with another attack. Even though he had the upper hand, he did not hold back and used all his strength. There was already a gap between their cultivation levels. In addition, Nangong Huang had read about Holy Sun Chang Yuan before, so he knew his opponent's moves and weaknesses like the back of his hand. There was almost no suspense in this battle. Bang! With a slash of the sword, Holy Sun Chang Yuan was blasted away and smashed into the wall of the arena. Even though he had the Overlord Physique and had a strong physical body, he was already riddled with scars from Nangong Huang's continuous attacks. He fell to the ground and tried to prop himself up, but in the end he could only lie on the ground unwillingly and could no longer stand up. Nangong Huang had won this battle. Damn it! The Overlord tribe leader was so angry that he punched the wall of the spectator stand. More than half of the wall of the spectator stand was directly smashed by him. He said with a gloomy expression, "How could this be? Chang Yuan's strength is second only to Chang Tian. How could he be defeated so quickly?" That Nangong Huang seems to have seen through Chang Yuan's moves. What's going on? The Overlord Sage tribe's various cultivation techniques were all kept secret, and Chang Yuan cultivated the most top-notch sage technique in the tribe. Even in the Overlord Sage tribe, not many people knew that technique. How did Nangong Huang know his opponent's moves and weaknesses? This Black Heaven sect is just too strange. The sect leaders and sky prides of the orthodoxies could not help but mutter. They had also noticed the strangeness of this battle, and when they thought about how Chu Kuangren could easily see through Li Yin's flaws, a ridiculous thought suddenly popped into their minds. Could it be that Chu Kuangren could see through their cultivation techniques and flaws? Wasn't this ability a little too overpowered? The crowd shook their heads and quickly threw that ridiculous thought to the back of their minds. However, they were even more afraid of Chu Kuangren now. The semi-finals continued. Due to Chang Yuan's defeat, the Overlord Sage tribe would not be able to advance to the finals if they lost another round. Hence, they immediately sent out their strongest cultivator, Chang Tian. Looking at young Emperor Chang Tian in the arena, Lan Yu, who was beside Chu Kuangren, had a stern look in her eyes. "Master, let me fight this round." "All right." Chu Kuangren nodded. Lan Yu leaped down from the skybox, and with a flash of white light, a gorgeous silver-white armor had already covered her body. An incredibly cold holy aura emanated and turned into a majestic domineering aura that crushed towards Chang Tian. Young Emperor Lan Yu, I've always wanted to fight you." Chang Tian snorted coldly as a purple palm chi circled around his body. An overbearing Taoist rhyme emanated and fought against Lan Yu's domineering aura. It was the Overlord Sage tribe's rare purple-blooded Overlord Physique, which was also one of the top 30 supreme Taoist physiques among the 3,000 physiques. "Let's fight." Without another word, Chang Tian attacked with all his might. Purple sword chi condensed on his fist and a peerlessly domineering Taoist rhyme filled the air. As he threw a punch, a purple fist seal appeared out of thin air and charged towards Lan Yu with an unstoppable force. Lan Yu remained calm in the face of that attack. She gently tapped the scepter in her hand on the ground, and a white barrier appeared. Chapter 303. Boom. Chang Tian's fist energy landed on the white barrier in front of Lan Yu. With a loud bang, Lan Yu was sent flying hundreds of feet away. The violent shockwave swept in all directions, stirring up a cloud of dust and obscuring everyone's vision. Chang Tian smirked. "Even an honorable supreme wouldn't feel good after taking my attack. This is the power of the purple-blooded overlord body. Lan Yu, you're going to lose this battle for sure. I'm the strongest young emperor in the world." Everyone was shocked by Chang Tian's combat strength. They did not expect Lan Yu, who had been so strong all this while, to be sent flying by a single punch. As expected of the strongest young emperor. Impressive. Yeah, Chang Tian's performance in the championship was also very dazzling. He has never lost a single battle, so he might really be stronger than Lan Yu. As the crowd discussed among themselves, the dust settled. Lan Yu stood there, patted the dust off her armor and said calmly, "The strongest young emperor in the world? You can't even take a single slap from master, yet you dare to spout nonsense here. Where do you get your confidence from?" Although Chang Tian had shattered the white barrier with a single punch, she was unscathed. Her armor was still shiny and beautiful. Hearing Lan Yu's words, Chang Tian's face turned extremely gloomy. The purple energy around his body began to stir, and a violent Taoist rhyme spread out with him as the center. "Provoking me will only make your defeat worse." Chang Tian growled and continued to attack. One punch after another, each punch was ferocious and domineering. They were all top-notch sage techniques of the Overlord Sage tribe. Divine Rain of Light. Lan Yu held her scepter and unleashed her light-based Taoist rhyme. A huge white ball of light formed and shot out beams of light that resembled raindrops, colliding with Chang Tian's fist energy. The void was disturbed by the two forces, causing it to tremble. After the first round of attacks, just as Chang Tian was about to charge for the second round of attacks, Lan Yu stomped on the ground and shot out like a cannonball. She raised her scepter and smashed it down. "Trying to fight me in close combat?" Chang Tian's charge-up was interrupted, but he did not panic. He took a step back and dodged Lan Yu's attack, which was using the scepter as a club. The scepter smashed into the ground, and the violent force instantly caused the ground to cave in. A large amount of soil and rocks were mixed with the strong wind and splashed out. Chang Tian's vision was obscured by the rocks. He then felt a sharp pain in his abdomen before he was sent flying uncontrollably. "Who did you say was stupid?" Lan Yu looked at the sky and said calmly. "The winged humans were brave and good at fighting. Every single one of them was a natural-born warrior, and Lan Yu was one of the best." Although the Overlord tribe was also good at fighting, Chang Tian was still a level lower than Lan Yu when it came to fighting skills alone. Damn it! Chang Tian gritted his teeth. Although he had the Overlord body and Lan Yu's attack did not deal much damage to him, it had still embarrassed him. The spiritual energy in his body surged and the purple chi force exploded, turning into a giant palm that descended from the sky towards Lan Yu. Firmament God Palm. Lan Yu was locked on by the palm's Taoist rhyme, so she could not dodge it. She raised the scepter in her hand to the sky, and a majestic light-based Taoist rhyme exploded, blocking the palm attack. Brilliant heaven-shaking fist. Chang Tian's Taoist rhyme exploded again as he threw a punch. Lan Yu held the scepter in one hand to block the palm attack, and with the other she gathered the spiritual energy in her body and turned it into a white fireball to block the fist force. Several bursts of energy exploded at the same time, and the entire arena shook violently as a violent energy storm filled the void. The battle between Lan Yu and Chang Tian was still going on. Both of them could be said to be the strongest young emperors in the world. They both possessed the primordial emperor's essence and supreme Taoist physique. Their battle was so intense that it was as if two top-notch honorable supremes were fighting each other. Every move they made and every technique they used had the power to shake mountains and rivers, and it was extremely terrifying. Everyone's eyes were glued to this battle. Sand and rocks were swirling in the wind, and the void was shaking. The vast holy Taoist rhyme and the violent Overlord body's Taoist rhyme clashed fiercely. "I'm the strongest young emperor. You shall be defeated." Chang Tian roared as he threw a punch. He had pushed his purple-blooded Overlord body to its limit, and rays of purple energy surrounded his body to form a gigantic palm that pushed forward. The palm seemed to hold the mountains, rivers, the sun, and the moon, and it was extremely terrifying. Purple-blooded Overlord body's transformation, Heaven's Grasp. Lan Yu's body emitted an endless divine radiance as she faced the Taoist physique transformation before her. She also activated her Taoist physique transformation to fight against it. The endless radiance and the gigantic palm collided, and a loud explosion erupted. The collision of the two Taoist transformations formed a storm that spread out, and the spectators felt as if they were about to be blown away. What a powerful force. Is this the scene of a battle between supreme Taoist physiques? In the spectator stands, the Sky Prides had their eyes glued to the battle. In the Sky Emperor Palace's direction, Sky Pride Chang'eo watched the battle with a serious expression. "No matter who these two are, their combat strength is no weaker than mine. They are formidable opponents." At the Black Heaven sect. Sect leader, Lan Yu looks like she's having a hard time. Murong Xian said with a frown. "Don't worry. Lan Yu will definitely win this battle." Mysterious Taoist runes flickered in the depths of Chu Kuangren's eyes as he quickly analyzed Lan Yu's chances of winning this battle. 71%. Lan Yu had more than a 70% chance of winning this battle. Moreover, Lan Yu had already figured out Chang Tian's weakness. This battle was settled. Judgment of Light. Lan Yu grabbed the void with her bare hands, and a large amount of light gathered in her palm, forming a dazzling divine spear. The divine spear shot out. It streaked across the sky and headed straight for Chang Tian. Brilliant heaven-shaking fist. Chang Tian pushed his purple-blooded overlord body to its limit and unleashed a punch. An extremely violent aura gushed out like a torrent and turned into a giant fist. Under the enhancement of the transformations, both of their combat strengths were greatly boosted. They were extremely terrifying and powerful. The divine spear and the fist followed one after another, and their chi surged out like a hurricane. White and purple chi surged out in all directions. With a cracking sound, a crack appeared on the huge fist seal. The crack expanded and gradually covered the entire fist seal. Then the white divine spear pierced through the fist and into Chang Tian's chest. The huge force sent him flying and pinned him onto the wall of the arena. The crowd could not help but gasp. F***ck me? That hurts. This move is too cruel. Chang Tian could not help but roar as he was pinned to the wall by the divine spear. Lan Yu, I'm going to kill you. Chang Tian had awakened his purple-blooded overlord body at birth and had experienced thousands of battles. However, he had never been in such a sorry state, pinned to the wall in front of millions of spectators. Even Chu Kuangren had not done this before. He tried his best to pull the divine spear out, but the light-based Taoist rhyme on it was destroying his meridians and body, making it difficult for him to channel his spiritual power. No matter what he did, he could not move the divine spear at all. The strongest young emperor? What a joke. Lan Yu walked up to Chang Tian and said. Chapter 304. We admit defeat in this battle. Seeing that Chang Tian was pinned to the wall and that his life would be in danger if he was not treated in time, the Overlord tribe leader could no longer sit still. The competition could be lost, but the heavens could not die. That was the only supreme Taoist physique in the Overlord Sage tribe. The Overlord tribe leader appeared in the arena with a whoosh. He pulled the divine spear out of Chang Tian's body and glared at Lan Yu. Lan Yu was fearless. Given her current battle prowess, even a veteran honorable supreme like the Overlord tribe leader might not be able to defeat her if quasi-sages and sages did not make a move. Winner, Lan Yu from Black Heaven Sect. The 13th prefect said. Black Heaven Sect had advanced to the finals. Before this, the Black Heaven Sect had never been defeated. Their dazzling results shocked everyone in the audience. Next was the semi-finals between Sky Emperor Palace and Tempest Mountain. Chu Kuangren and the others watched for a while. In the end, the Sky Emperor Palace was the winner of this match. It's confirmed, our final opponent is the Sky Emperor Palace. Chu Kuangren chuckled. He looked in the direction of the Sky Emperor Palace Lord and saw the cold look in his eyes. Black Heaven Sect, I'm looking forward to the finals tomorrow. I think the results will disappoint you. Looks like you guys have victory in your hands. To be honest, I really don't think that the Sky Emperor Palace's geniuses can defeat us. Chu Kuangren glanced at the Sky Prides in the opposing camp. Their overall strength was about the same as the Overlord Sage tribe. The Black Heaven Sect had a very high chance of winning. Then let's wait and see. The Sky Emperor Palace Lord snorted lightly and left. That night, in the sky above First City, there was a lake on a floating island. There was a pavilion in the middle of the lake. A middle-aged man dressed in black sat in the pavilion with an indifferent expression. In front of him were drinks and snacks as if he was waiting for someone. After a while, ripples appeared in the void. A man slowly walked over, stepping on the moonlight. The man's face was tough and his every move exuded a sense of nobility. Heavenly King Jianghu of the Sky Emperor Palace. I wonder what business you have with me? The black-robed man within the pavilion smiled faintly. Heavenly King was an honorific title for saints in the Sky Emperor Palace. Heavenly King Jianghu was the sage of the Sky Emperor Palace. As for the others, they generally referred to him as Heavenly King Sage Jianghu. Third Prefect, you should be aware of the progress of the championship. The 11th Prefect and the others are in charge of this matter. It has nothing to do with me. The man in black, who was the third Prefect, smiled faintly. You're the first city saint and you're ranked third among the 13 prefects. You hold an esteemed position, and while the first prefect is in closed-door cultivation and the second prefect isn't around, you're in charge of the first city. You're much more useful than the 13 prefects, said Heavenly Emperor Jiang. Sit. The third prefect gestured with his hand. Heavenly Emperor Sage Jiang sat in front of him and said indifferently, I'm here today for one thing only. My Heavenly Emperor Palace has to win. The Sky Emperor Palace's opponent is the Black Heaven sect, right? Those few brats are indeed extraordinary. It won't be easy for the Sky Emperor Palace to win, but isn't it normal to win and lose in a competition? I said, the Sky Emperor Palace wants to win. Heavenly King Sage Jiang said resolutely. So you're asking me to cheat for you? This will damage the first city's reputation, said the third prefect. As far as I know, the third prefect isn't someone who values reputation. As long as there's profit to be had. This was also the reason why Heavenly Emperor Sage Jiang came looking for the third prefect. If the first city was in the hands of the second prefect or the first prefect, he would not have come. Unfortunately, the first prefect was in closed-door cultivation and the second prefect was out traveling. The first city was now in the hands of the third prefect. What kind of profit? I heard that the third prefect has been searching for the ethereal rapture all these years. You know clues about the ethereal rapture? The third prefect's eyes lit up. Indeed. The ethereal rapture is one of the unknown lands. Not many people know its exact location. How did the Sky Emperor Palace find out? Although the unknown lands are hidden from the world, they're not completely cut off from the outside world. Every once in a while, the unknown lands will send their young disciples out into the world. The world calls them Empyrean Walkers. According to the ancient records, one of the ancestors of the Sky Emperor Palace was fortunate enough to be acquainted with an Empyrean Walker from the ethereal rapture. He even told the Sky Emperor Palace the exact location of the ethereal rapture. Heavenly Emperor Sage Jiang said slowly. The third prefect could not help but fall into deep thought after listening to him. He was tempted. For some reason he had been searching for the ethereal rapture all these years. However, as an unknown land, even a sage like him could not find it that easily. He had not found anything even after so long. Now that the clues about the ethereal rapture were right in front of him, it was impossible for him not to be tempted. I'll find a way for the Sky Emperor Palace to win tomorrow's competition. I hope Sage Jiang can tell me how to get to the ethereal rapture. Of course, but I'm a little curious. Why are you so obsessed with the ethereal rapture, third prefect? Heavenly Emperor Sage Jiang asked. That's my personal matter, so I won't tell you, Sage Jiang. However, I didn't expect the Black Heaven sect to put so much pressure on the Sky Emperor Palace that Sage Jiang would come looking for me, the third prefect said. Chu Kuangren has won 5 billion top-tier soul stones and 2 sage weapons from the Sky Emperor Palace. On top of that, the Sky Emperor Palace wants to open up all of our cultivation techniques to him. Do you think I can take this lying down? Heavenly Emperor Sage Jiang said coldly. As if sensing the third prefect's emotions, ripples began to form on the surface of the lake. One by one the fishes could not withstand the sage's aura, so they died and floated to the surface. Chu Kuangren is indeed terrifying. In the past 150,000 years, it's hard to find another sky pride that can be mentioned in the same breath as him. At the mention of Chu Kuangren, even a sage like the third prefect could not help but exclaim. To be honest, if the Sky Emperor Palace had not offered the clues about the ethereal rapture in exchange, he would not want to offend Chu Kuangren. The next day, the final match of the championship. Countless people were looking forward to the match between the Black Heaven sect and the Sky Emperor Palace. Wow, there's a lot more spectators than a few days ago. When Chu Kuangren and the others walked into the arena, they could not help but exclaim. At this time the arena was packed with people. The number of people had increased by a large margin compared to when they first arrived. It was obvious that everyone was very interested in the final match. Some of the people who had not watched the first few rounds of the championship came to watch. Everyone, let's cut to the chase. Let's begin the final round of the championship. It's still the best of 3. However, the venue this time will be the Thousand Mammoth Secret Realm. The 13th prefect waved his hand, and a circle of light and dozens of light screens suddenly appeared on the arena. Some of the light screens were of deserts, some were caves, and some were even murky swamps. The Thousand Mammoth Secret Realm is divided into dozens of different scenes. The contestants will be sent to these scenes to fight until one side admits defeat or is unable to fight anymore. The final winner will be the champion of this championship. All the prizes sponsored by the Sage Orthodoxies will be won by the winner. Now let the competition begin. Chapter 305. Why did they have to use such a huge arena instead of the 10,000 secret realm? What the hell are they trying to do? Chu Kuangren frowned. Chu Kuangren, it's already a miracle that the Black Heaven sect managed to come this far. However, we shall be the champion today. The Sky Emperor Palace Lord said to Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren glanced at him. The Overlord Sage tribe leader said the same thing before, but his young emperor ended up pinned to the wall. Let's wait and see then. The Sky Emperor Palace Lord was not angry. He smiled faintly, looking as if victory was already in his grasp, as if he had something to rely on. I think there's something fishy about this finals. Chu Kuangren rubbed his chin as he scanned the Sky Emperor Palace's Sky Prides. He activated his Eye of Revelation. These Sky Prides did not change much. Their strengths were still the same. Compared to Nangong Huang and the others, Nangong Huang and the others still had a higher chance of winning. Where did the Sky Emperor Palace Lord get his confidence from? At that thought, Chu Kuangren looked at the judges. Did they bribe the judges? No way. Are these sage orthodoxies that shameless? Besides, even if they did, can they still distort the truth in front of everyone? Chu Kuangren thought to himself. While he was deep in thought, the matches had already begun. The Sky Emperor Palace's first representative was Jing Yan. Sect leader, let me go first. Junie smiled. She had witnessed Jing Yan's strength in the previous matches, so she was confident that she could defeat her. Chu Kuangren compared the information of both parties. If it was a one-on-one battle, Jun Yi's chances of winning were more than 80%. After some thought, he agreed. Be careful. All right. Junie nodded and walked into the arena. She and Jing Yan looked at each other and walked into the circle of light together. When they reappeared, they were already in a spacious underground cave. Dim candlelight flickered around them. Junie looked around and found that the stone walls of the cave contained some kind of strange material, like some kind of ore. Could this be a mineral vein? Junie thought to herself. At that moment, a palm chi came whistling from behind her. A sword appeared in Jun Yi's hand, and with a backhand slash, a water blue sword chi disintegrated the palm chi, and she used the momentum to retreat several dozen feet. Opposite her, Jing Yan, who was dressed in red, was staring at her. Her entire body was circulating with a surging Taoist rhyme as she raised her hand and launched another palm attack. Is this the Sky Emperor Palace's Saint Technique, 6 combined palms? Junie recognized this palm technique and counterattacked with her sword. The long sword danced, and the aqua blue sword light seemed to transform into endless waves. It was the Saint Technique Tidal Sword Technique. She cultivated the water-based sword principle, so this set of sword techniques was very compatible with her. The power she displayed was even stronger than Nangong Huang's. The unceasing sword energy disintegrated the palm energy. Jing Yan's expression changed abruptly as she could not help but be slammed into the stone wall by the sword energy. Such powerful sword chi. Jing Yan was secretly shocked. If you don't want to suffer, then admit defeat. Junie said lightly. Admit defeat? How is that possible? Jing Yan took out a guqin. I'll let you witness the power of the Sky Emperor Palace's #1 guqin technique, the Honorable Emperor Tune. The moment she took out the guqin, Jun Yi immediately attacked. Sword energy surrounded her like a tsunami. Jing Yan's expression changed as she played with all 10 of her fingers. The sound of the guqin reverberated in the underground cave. It was vast and majestic like the arrival of an emperor, causing the entire underground cave to shake. The violent sound of the guqin shattered the sword energy around Jun Yi and pushed her back in an instant. The hand that was holding the sword was trembling slightly. How is this possible? Junie could not believe it. She had seen Jing Yan's guqin music in the competition before, but the power of her guqin music was far from this level. How did it suddenly become so much stronger? Even Jing Yan herself could not believe it, let alone Jun Yi. What's going on? Wait a minute. Jing Yan suddenly noticed something. She looked at the surrounding mountain walls and said in surprise, "This is a mine, and the ore here is an echo stone." The echo stone, as its name suggested, was a stone that could produce echoes. 1 or 2 echo stones would not enhance the power of the guqin music. But now, there was an entire echo mineral vein here. Jing Yan's guqin music could be greatly enhanced here. It would be a piece of cake for her to deal with an honorable supreme here. Ha, the heavens are on my side. Jing Yan thought that she was lucky that the competition was held here. She quickly plucked the strings of the guqin excitedly. The sound of the guqin reverberated wildly in the entire echo stone vein. With the support of the stone vein, the sound would not stop for a long time, and its power would multiply. Boom boom. Wave after wave of Guqin music crashed into Jun-E like a tidal wave. Even though Jun-E tried her best to block it and activate her sword energy, it was still not enough in the face of the power that was supported by the geographical advantage. Soon Jun-E was severely injured. She gripped her long sword tightly and activated her spiritual energy to resist the Guqin music. She forced her body to move and attack, but her consciousness was beginning to blur under the interference of the Guqin music. In the arena on the viewing platform, a surge of raging Taoist rhyme swept out. Chu Kuangren's gaze was like lightning as he looked at the judges. I need an explanation. Why is there an echo stone vein in the competition venue? Under Chu Kuangren's domineering aura, the 13th prefect felt his legs turn to jelly. He bit the bullet and said, "The 10,000 secret realm contains many locations, and the competition venue is randomly selected from these locations. Are you trying to tell me that we're just unlucky that we randomly picked this echo stone vein in the competition?" Chu Kuangren said coldly. "Sect leader Chu, please calm down. You can't blame the judges just because you're unlucky, can you?" The Sky Emperor Palace Lord chuckled. "Sky Emperor Palace Lord, you should know better than me whether it's really luck or not." Chu Kuangren suppressed his anger and said, "Sect leader, this is bad. Jun-E can't hold on any longer." Murong Xian said in a serious tone. Under the influence of the Guqin music, Jun-E, who was in the mine, had already started to bleed from all 7 orifices. Even so, she still did not collapse. However, everyone could tell that she could not win. "We admit defeat for this match," Chu Kuangren said coldly to the 13th prefect. He could not risk Jun-Yi's life for a mere competition. The competition will only end if the contestant personally surrenders, or if it's confirmed that she has lost consciousness and no longer has the ability to resist. Otherwise, even sect leader Chu has no right to stop the competition. The 13th prefect said with a hint of a smile in his eyes. He had lost so many soul stones to Chu Kuangren, so it was only natural that he held a grudge against Chu Kuangren. Now that he saw Chu Kuangren being defeated, he was secretly pleased. Bus. A sword chi slashed across the 13th prefect's body, splitting the judge's booth into 2. The 13th prefect, who was secretly pleased with himself, was so shocked by the sudden sword chi that he fell to the ground. A chill ran down his spine and quickly engulfed his entire body. It was as if he had just taken a trip to the gates of hell. "Don't force me to tear down the first city." Chu Kuangren's gaze was as cold as a sword as he stared at the 13th prefect. This time, the 13th prefect did not dare to say anything more. He hurriedly opened the light barrier and sent both Jing Yan and Jun-E back to the arena. Chapter 306. Both Jun-E and Jing Yan were teleported back to the arena. Chu Kuangren immediately went to Jun-E and saw that she was bleeding from her 7 orifices and was in a daze. He glared coldly at Jing Yan, causing her to tremble in fear. She could not help but crumple to the ground. This is a competition. What are you trying to do?" Chu Kuangren ignored her and immediately cast the Spring Breeze healing technique to heal Jun-Yi's body. "Sect leader, I'm sorry?" Jun-E murmured under Chu Kuangren's support. Eventually, she could not hold on any longer and fainted. The Spring Breeze healing technique could heal physical injuries, but not only did the Guqin music damage the body, it also greatly affected the mind. In this regard, the Spring Breeze healing technique was not very effective. Chu Kuangren held on to Jun-E. Although she had already fainted, he still said, "You've done well." "Sect leader, how's Jun-E?" Murong Xian, Jin Fian, and the others gathered around. "She just fainted. It's nothing serious. Fian, bring her back to rest." Chu Kuangren handed Jun-E over to Jin Fian. The spectators around them were in a heated discussion. Did the Black Heaven sect lose? I can't believe the Black Heaven sect lost. This is the first time this has happened since the beginning of the competition. The Sky Emperor Palace sure is powerful. It's not really a loss. It's just bad luck for the Black Heaven sect to draw that kind of setting as the venue. The Linghu clan and the Thunder Falcon tribe were watching the battle too. They could not help but laugh when they saw the Black Heaven sect lose. The people from the Black Heaven sect have finally lost. How delightful. Yeah, let them be happy. Flowers don't bloom for 100 days and people don't have 1,000 days of happiness. I knew the Black Heaven sect wouldn't be able to keep winning like this. "Sect leader Chu, we can move on to the next round," the Sky Emperor Palace Lord said with a proud smile. "Let's continue," Chu Kuangren said. "Chang'eo, it's your turn for the next round." Chang'eo was the Sky Emperor Palace's young emperor. He was also the most outstanding Sky Pride of the Sky Emperor Palace's younger generation, and his strength was not any weaker than Chang'e. It seemed that the Sky Emperor Palace did not plan to give the Black Heaven sect any chance to turn the tables. They wanted to win 2 rounds in a row. Master, we can't afford to lose the next round. I'll go. Lan Yu calmly said. 2 out of 3 matches. If they lost another match, they would not be able to win the championship. Yes. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. He was quite confident in Lan Yu's abilities. Lan Yu and Chang'e walked into the circle of light. This time, the 2 of them appeared in a swamp surrounded by thick miasma. Not only that, but the miasma also contained an extremely evil and unsettling dark aura. As if it had sensed Lan Yu's holy radiant body, the dark energy began to fluctuate violently like oil being poured on a raging fire. The dark energy surged wildly towards Lan Yu, who was out of place as if it was trying to drive her away. Chang'e's Taoist rhyme accompanied the attack of the dark qi. It was a surging and overbearing aura. It was somewhat similar to the Taoist rhyme of the Overlord clan, but it was more majestic, just like a high and mighty emperor. Lan Yu frowned as she pushed the holy radiant body to its limit. Her Taoist physique transformed into thousands of rays of light that surged in all directions. Chang'e's Taoist rhyme was actually forced back by the dark energy. However, Lan Yu was not optimistic. The surrounding dark energy continued to corrode her while Chang'e watched from the side, waiting for an opportunity to strike. He was not in a hurry to attack. It was obvious that he had made up his mind to exhaust Lan Yu before defeating her in one fell swoop. In the arena, Chu Kuangren laughed. He was so angry that he laughed. The people around him could not help but feel a little scared when they heard his laughter. It was daytime and the sun was shining brightly, but everyone felt that the air around them was as cold as ice, giving them goosebumps. What a random move. First it was the Echo Mineral Vein, then this swamp with dark energy. If it's not strengthening the Sky Emperor Palace's disciples, it's weakening the Black Heaven sect's disciples. What a random move. Chu Kuangren's words became colder and colder. Even so, he still sat on the spot without moving. However, the 13th prefect felt that it would be better if he was as angry as before. Now, the calmer and more composed his opponent was, the more uneasy the 13th prefect felt. It was like the calm before the storm. Although nothing could be seen on the surface, the situation was already turbulent and unpredictable. Inside the swamp of the Thousand Secret Realm, Lan Yu was in a tough battle. Chang'e's strength was not stronger than Chang Tian's, but with the suppression of the dark energy around them, Lan Yu could not unleash her full strength and was at a disadvantage. This is troublesome. Lan Yu frowned. If this went on, she would be exhausted by the dark energy around her before she could be defeated by Chang'e. At that thought, Lan Yu's spiritual power was pushed to its limit, and an endless divine radiance erupted. Holy blaze. White flames erupted and ignited the dark energy. A large amount of dark energy was burned away by the holy blaze, and the thick miasma thinned out. Seeing this, Chang'e's expression changed slightly. I didn't expect you to use so much spiritual power to dispel the dark qi. But the dark qi here is endless and it will soon gather again. What you're doing is just a waste of effort. As long as I can defeat you before the dark energy gathers again, I'll be fine, Lan Yu said. Oh, how much spiritual power do you have left? How dare you say something like that? Chang'e sneered. It's enough. Lan Yu said no more and attacked Chang'e with all her might. Holy blaze, divine rain of light, immovable luminous fist. All sorts of skills were at her fingertips, and she only attacked without defending. Under such a strategy, Chang'e was suppressed. He could only defend himself and had no chance to fight back. In the end, Lan Yu took the opportunity to smash the scepter of light in her hand on Chang'e's body. A huge force erupted and blasted him into the swamp. Did I succeed? Lan Yu thought to herself. Even an honorable supreme would find it hard to defend against that attack of hers. Haha, what a pity, what a pity. At that moment, Chang'e rushed out of the swamp. A black inner armor could be seen among his torn clothes. It was this inner armor that blocked most of the attack's power. A defensive sacred weapon. Exactly. What a pity. If it wasn't for this sacred weapon, you could have defeated me with that attack. Chang'e laughed and threw a punch. A majestic Taoist rhyme erupted and blasted Lan Yu, who had little spiritual power left, into the swamp. There was an extremely dense dark energy there. In an instant, the dark energy surged into Lan Yu's body. With little spiritual power left, she could not resist it at all. The dark energy rampaged through her body and destroyed it. I've won this battle. The Black Heaven sect has lost. Chang'eo smiled. Just as he was waiting to be teleported out to celebrate his victory, a white light suddenly flashed in the swamp. Chang'eo's expression changed. What's going on? This dense spiritual power and Taoist rhyme. She can't possibly have this kind of power left. Boom. A wave of water splashed out from the swamp. A white spear shot out from the swamp. Chapter 307. A white spear shot out from the swamp. The sudden attack made Chang'eo's expression change. He frantically threw out a punch and a majestic Taoist rhyme erupted in an instant. However, that Taoist rhyme was instantly penetrated by the white spear and landed on the inner armor on his chest. Although the inner armor was a sacred artifact, the backlash from the spear's attack still caused Chang'eo to scream out in misery. With a loud explosion, Chang'eo was blasted away and fell to the ground. Meanwhile, Lan Yu slowly flew out from the swamp. Although she was covered in mud, her body still emanated a faint holy glow. You've broken through. Chang'eo lay on the ground in disbelief. He could tell that Lan Yu had broken through during the battle and reached the late stage of the honorable realm. It's all thanks to you that a large amount of dark qi entered my body and triggered a reaction from my Taoist physique. I was already on the verge of breaking through, so the stimulation saved me a lot of trouble. Lan Yu said. It was just like how Chu Kuangren used high temperatures to stimulate Shang Qingshue's Taoist physique to produce a chill. Although the dark qi could suppress the power of light, it could also stimulate the growth of the holy radiant physique to a certain extent. Just like the endless cycle of yin and yang. Of course, it was a very dangerous attempt. If one was not careful, one could explode on the spot. Lan Yu could only say that luck was on Lan Yu's side. Holding the scepter of light, Lan Yu channeled her Taoist rhyme and gathered her spiritual power at the tip of the scepter. She was about to strike Chang'eo. Meanwhile, Chang'eo's bones and tendons had already been shattered by that attack. He was now lying on the ground, unable to move at all. If this continued, Chang'eo would definitely die. I admit defeat. At that critical moment, Chang'eo yelled and surrendered. Lan Yu put away her scepter and walked up to the man. She then kicked him into the swamp. This kick is for Junyi. Then both of them were teleported back to the arena. Lan Yu's face turned pale and her body went limp. She almost knelt on the ground. However, Chu Kuangren arrived in time and held her in his arms. How are you? Although I managed to break through at the last moment, I've used up too much of my spiritual power. That last attack took all of my strength. Take the pill first and adjust your breathing. Chu Kuangren used the spring breeze healing technique and fed Shang Qingxue a medicinal pill before asking her to take good care of Lan Yu. Not far away. The Sky Emperor Palace Lord's expression was very ugly. ****, how could they lose like that? Lan Yu actually managed to break through at the last moment. How lucky. Damn, it's a tie now. His gaze flickered and he said to a youth beside him, next match, Jin Yun, you go. You must win for me. I understand, Palace Master. The young man called Jin Yun nodded. On the Black Heaven sect's side, Murong Xian stepped forward. Sect leader, this Jin Yun cultivates an ice elemental technique. My Divine Nine Suns technique just so happens to counter it. Let me take on the last match. I will never lose. Murong Xian's eyes flickered with determination. Be careful. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. The final battle of the Hegemony Tournament. Murong Xian versus Jin Yun of the Sky Emperor Palace begin. Both of them walked into the Circle of Light. As soon as they stepped out of the Circle of Light, Murong Xian felt a wave of chilling intent sweeping towards him. He found himself in a snowy mountain. This time the audience booed. The first time could be a coincidence, the second time could be an accident, but there was no way to explain the third time. All three matches were in the Sky Emperor Palace's favor. Not many would believe that there was nothing fishy going on. F***ck me, this is obviously against the Black Heaven sect. That's right, there's definitely something fishy going on here. You call this random? There must be something fishy going on. The Black Heaven sect has won so far with their own strength. I can't believe they're being targeted like this in the finals. Sigh, I can only say that the Black Heaven sect is too famous now. Not only that, but they even won 1 billion soul stones from the Sky Emperor Palace. How could the Sky Emperor Palace swallow this? I'm afraid they've bribed the first city somehow. What's the point of doing this? They might as well just give the championship to the Sky Emperor Palace. The Sky Emperor Palace has long since given up on the championship. All they want is to suppress the Black Heaven sect. The audience was in a heated discussion. D*Eminent, this judge is obviously on the Sky Emperor Palace's side. Nangong Huang said angrily. The other Taoists were also furious. On the other hand, Chu Kuangren looked calm as if he was not surprised by the scene before him. This Chu Kuangren is really good at keeping his cool. The Overlord tribe leader could not help but sneer. How did the Sky Emperor Palace bribe the judge? Something's not right. Some of the Orthodoxy sect leaders looked at Chu Kuangren's calm demeanor and felt that something was not right. He's too calm. The White Lotus leader took a deep breath and said. As the Black Heaven sect's ally, the White Lotus leader had some understanding of Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren was not the kind of person who would suffer losses. Now that he had encountered such unfair treatment in the tournament, how could he tolerate it? This was clearly illogical. This is the Chu Kuangren who wreaked havoc in the Murong clan, the Shang clan, and even killed a sage. He doesn't look like the legend. Some of the sage Orthodoxy sect leaders shook their heads and laughed. I can't help but feel that something's not right. The Thunder Falcon tribe leader, Linghu clan leader, and the others looked at each other and saw the uneasiness in each other's eyes. As the saying goes, no one knows you better than your enemies. The Linghu clan leader and the Thunder Falcon tribe leader knew Chu Kuangren much better than the other Orthodoxy sect leaders. They knew very well that Chu Kuangren's calmness was too abnormal. However, speculations were just speculations. Perhaps Chu Kuangren had changed? Perhaps he had become more mature after being a sect leader for a few years? Everyone thought to themselves. Soon they turned their attention to the tournament. Murong Xian and Jin Yun, who had just stepped into the snowy mountain, were staring at each other from afar. Jin Yun said, "This is a great place." Indeed. Since you're an ice-based Tao practitioner, this snowy mountain is indeed a good place for you. That's good too, at least I won't have to feel too bored, Murong Xian said as he took out his long sword. Then, an extremely scorching Taoist rime erupted from his body, and the surrounding ice and snow instantly melted into a puddle of water. Murong Xian's figure dashed out and brandished his long sword. He ignored the snowstorm around him and unleashed his full combat strength towards Jin Yun. Under such an attack, Jin Yun was initially suppressed. However, as he gradually got used to it, he began to use the power of the snowstorm to enhance his own cultivation technique to counterattack Murong Xian. Ice Crystal Blast. Jin Yun's spiritual power surged and a surge of ice-cold Taoist rhymes spread out, turning into countless ice crystals that blasted towards Murong Xian along with the snowstorm. Facing this attack, Murong Xian's entire body was covered in a layer of crimson flames. He allowed the ice crystals to cut through his body, but his body did not stop moving towards Jin Yun as he swung his long sword. The scorching wave of flames melted the snowstorm and hit Jin Yun's body, sending him flying. D*Eminent, does this guy have a death wish? Chapter 308. Does this guy have a death wish? Jin Yun felt his scalp tingle as he watched Murong Xian attack without defending. Murong Xian was stronger than him, but he had the advantage of being in the right place. Logically speaking, he should have been able to defeat his opponent. However, Murong Xian was insane. He only attacked and did not defend. It was as if he no longer cared about his life. How terrifying could a person who did not care about his life be? Jin Yun finally experienced it. Crimson flames danced in the sky while scorching sword energy turned into heat waves that rolled in the snowy world. It was the only bright color in the snow. During the battle, Murong Xian's body was already covered in many bloody scars caused by the ice crystals. Waves of cold energy continuously invaded his body through his wounds, freezing his limbs and bones. Opposite him, Jin Yun, who was also injured, sneered as he watched Murong Xian's movements stiffen. The chilling energy contained within these ice crystals of mine can erode meridians, flesh, and even freeze your internal organs. Right now, you should be having a hard time moving, right? I have won this battle, Jin Yun said. Hee. It's too early to say that. Murong Xian smiled faintly. Crimson flames gushed out of his body and quickly dispelled the cold energy in his body. Jin Yun's eyes narrowed when he saw this. You actually burned your spiritual energy in your body. You're using this method to dispel the cold energy, but the flames will burn your body as well. Lunatic, do you really not want to live anymore? A hint of pain appeared on Murong Xian's face, but he still grinned and said, compared to having my spiritual mound crippled, compared to the sect leader's training, this little pain is nothing. I did say that I would win. Murong Xian dashed forward and began his second round of attacks. His injuries were more serious, but his attacks were getting fiercer. Raging flames surrounded his body, and the long sword in his hand trembled. Even the ice and snow around him couldn't make him retreat at all. Right now, Murong Xian was like a flaming demon who had just walked out of hell. Damn it, damn it. Jin Yun was terrified when he saw Murong Xian's suicidal attacks. Divine Nine Suns Technique 7 Suns / Murong Xian gathered all the spiritual energy in his body and a majestic flame gushed out from him, turning into 7 gigantic fireballs. It was as if there were 7 suns filled with incomparably scorching heat. Under this power, the entire snowy mountain actually produced an avalanche. The 7 suns merged with the sword Qi and slashed at Murong Xian in a frenzy. Icicle Mirror. Jin Yun roared and his spiritual power surged. The ice elemental Taoist rhyme instantly exploded, and the mixed spiritual power transformed into a hexagonal ice mirror in front of him. The first fireball smashed onto the ice mirror and exploded. Powerful Qi swept out in all directions. Then came the second, third, fourth. When the 5th one landed on the ice mirror finally couldn't take it anymore. Cracks appeared on its surface, and it shattered into countless ice crystals. The 6th and 7th fireballs smashed into Jin Yun's body. The scorching fire-attributed sword Qi drilled into Jin Yun's body, crazily destroying his body, causing him to let out a series of blood-curdling screams. With a thud, Jin Yun fell to the ground with smoke coming out of his body. Murong Xian, on the other hand, laid on the ground in exhaustion after unleashing his final attack. He found it difficult to even move a finger. Seeing this, everyone couldn't help but look at each other. How does this count? Is it a draw? Don't tell me there's going to be another round? No, look. On the screen, Murong Xian, who was initially lying on the ground, slowly crawled up from the snowy ground and staggered to regain his footing. Opposite him, Jin Yun struggled to get up as well, but he failed in the end. His head tilted and he fainted. Seeing this, Murong Xian raised his arm high and announced his victory. At that moment, the entire arena erupted in cheers. We've won. The Black Heaven sect has won. We've finally won. We've made a comeback. All hail the Black Heaven sect. Beside Chu Kuangren, Nangong Huang, Qin Wushuang, and a few other Taoists were extremely excited too. They were so happy that they almost jumped up. However, compared to their excitement, Chu Kuangren's expression was very calm. His gaze was cold and emotionless. He came to the arena and helped the injured Murong Xian up. Do you want to die? Chu Kuangren said angrily. I promised the sect leader that I'll bring back the championship. How can I go back on my word? Murong Xian chuckled. However, as soon as he finished speaking, he could no longer hold on and fainted. Damn, another one fainted. Chu Kuangren cast the spring breeze healing technique on him and said to Nangong Huang and the others, "You guys can go back first." Everyone was confused. Sect leader, we've won. Do we not want the prize? It's fine. I'll take it back for you guys. Chu Kuangren smiled. Lan Yu pondered for a while before he said to Nangong Huang and the others, "Let's go back first. I'll leave everything here to you, master." Oh, all right then. Nangong Huang and the others seemed to have sensed something. The few of them left the arena. Not far away, the Sky Emperor Palace Lord was so angry that his mouth twitched. We actually lost. How is this possible? We've already gone this far and they still lost. How can the Black Heaven sect disciples be so strong? The Sky Emperor Palace Lord was furious, but there was nothing he could do. Meanwhile, in the judge's booth, the 13th prefect announced reluctantly, "The championship has come to an end. The winner is the Black Heaven sect." The audience cheered. The sage orthodoxy shook their heads and sighed. In the end, the Black Heaven sect still won. That's right. This sect is too amazing. I can't believe there are so many outstanding sky prides besides Chu Kuangren. However, the crowd soon realized that something was wrong. Lan Yu, Nangong Huang, and the others had left. What was going on? Were they not going to receive the prize? Chu Kuangren hasn't left yet. The crowd looked at Chu Kuangren in the arena, confused. In the judge's booth, the 13th prefect said, "Sect leader Chu, you've won. Why did your disciples leave first? They've worked hard. Let them go back and rest. Let me, the sect leader, clean up the mess for them. Help them receive the prize? Sure." The 13th prefect took out a yin and yang ring. When he passed it to Chu Kuangren, he saw a pale palm growing larger in front of him. Then a slap landed on his face and his body was sent flying into the wall. Chu Kuangren caught his opponent's yin and yang ring and said, "Aside from receiving the prize, I'll also seek justice for them." The sudden turn of events caused everyone's expression to change. Chu Kuangren had hit a judge. The sage orthodoxies that were about to leave stopped in their tracks. It's here. The real show is about to begin. The Thunder Falcon tribe leader Linghu clan head, and the others' eyes lit up. The White Lotus leader could not help but shake her head. I knew it. How could this guy let this go after receiving such treatment? I bet he's been holding it in for a long time. It must have been tough on him. In the judge's booth, the 11th and 12th prefect stood up and glared at Chu Kuangren furiously. What are you trying to do? Chapter 309. What are you trying to do? In the judge's booth, the 11th and 12th prefects stood up and glared at Chu Kuangren furiously. However, a cold surge of Taoist rhyme erupted from Chu Kuangren's body and instantly swept across the entire arena, almost crushing the two prefects to the ground. Both of them were terrified. After all, they were both honorable supremes. However, they were suppressed to such an extent by Chu Kuangren's Taoist rhyme. They were in disbelief. You're asking me what I'm trying to do? Ah, what a joke. Chu Kuangren sneered before he continued, abolishing the point system and forbidding the use of medicinal pills. I've tolerated all of that. But you've challenged my bottom line time and time again. You've openly cheated in front of me and used the Thousand Secret Realm against the Black Heaven sect. Do you really think I'm blind? As Chu Kuangren uttered his last sentence, the Taoist rhyme that emanated from his body became even more terrifying. The entire arena was shrouded in his rage, and all of the Orthodoxy sect leaders and sky prides were terrified. Chang Tian, Chang Ao, Xiao Tianai, Li Yin, and the other sky prides could not help but tremble as they looked at the white-robed figure in disbelief. Just the aura alone made them unable to resist, and they almost fell to the ground. What kind of terrifying existence was that? Is this Chu Kuangren's true form? I think he was just messing around with Chang Tian before. It was like he was toying with an ant. Faced with Chu Kuangren's rage, the judges in the judge's booth felt like their scalps were about to explode. They were terrified. Chu Kuangren, what are you trying to do? I need an explanation. Chu Kuangren said coldly, the Black Heaven sect needs an explanation from the First City. I want the First City and those who bribed you to reveal the truth behind this competition and apologize to the Black Heaven sect. Reveal the truth behind this competition. Apologize. The Sky Emperor Palace Lord and the prefect's expressions changed upon hearing that. Many people could tell that there was something fishy going on. However, that was one thing. Even if the world knew about it, it would not affect the First City much without any evidence. However, if it were to be revealed, it would mean that the Sky Emperor Palace and the First City had taken the initiative to come clean. That would be a huge blow. The most direct impact was that the reputation of the two superpowers would hit rock bottom. Chu Kuangren, don't cross the line. Oh, is this too much? I'll give you another choice, and that is to let me tear down the First City. As soon as he finished speaking, a vast pressure suddenly descended from the sky. There was also a powerful sage Taoist rhyme mixed within. The sage had arrived. A black-robed middle-aged man then stepped through the air and stared at Chu Kuangren with a piercing gaze. Rumor has it that Chu Kuangren is an insolent person. Now that I've seen it for myself, I can see that you live up to your reputation. Not only did the Black Heaven sect win the competition, they even want to destroy the First City. What kind of logic is this? The 11th and 12th prefects were delighted to see him. Greetings, third prefect. This black-robed middle-aged man was the First City's third prefect. He was also one of the First City's 3 saints and was currently in charge. Chu Kuangren was still relentless despite the appearance of the sage. He said coldly, the Black Heaven sect could have easily won the competition, but you people interfered and caused my disciples to be severely injured. They even almost lost their lives. Do you think you'll be fine just because we won? You're too naive. Let me repeat myself. Either the First City makes a public apology, or I'll tear down the First City today. Very well, very well. Chu Kuangren, to be so arrogant and domineering. I'd like to see how you're going to tear down the First City. The third prefect laughed out of anger as a powerful sage aura erupted from his body. That aura was more terrifying than most of the sages that Chu Kuangren had encountered in the past. It was even more powerful than the Shang clan's 6-step sage. A 7-step sage. The First City's third prefect was a 7-step sage. Chu Kuangren activated his Eye of Revelation to analyze his opponent's strength. Looks like we'll have to fight then. Chu Kuangren unsheathed his descendant's self-sword. The razor-sharp sword Qi wreaked havoc in the void. Upon seeing that, the spectators in the arena did not dare to stay any longer and quickly left. That was the combat strength of a sage. Compared to that, the previous battles in the championship were just child's play. If they stayed any longer and got caught up in the battle, even an honorable would not be able to escape unscathed. I've long wanted to meet you in person. Come. The third prefect said calmly. He then raised his hand and unleashed a palm attack. A large amount of spiritual power converged and formed into a milky white giant hand. With a powerful gust of wind, it came crashing down on Chu Kuangren. That attack was so powerful that it shook the entire arena. On the other hand, Chu Kuangren did not retreat or evade. Instead, he unleashed a palm attack of his own. Golden spiritual power surged and formed into a giant golden hand. A boundless and majestic Buddhist light shone and blasted towards the giant hand. Sage ruler technique, giant palm of exorcism. Boom. The two giant hands collided in the air. The golden Buddhist light and the white spiritual power mixed together and turned into a violent shockwave that spread across the entire arena. The ground cracked, sand and stones were blown away, and the surrounding walls collapsed. The frenzied chi swept across, continuously smashing into the audience seats. Immediately, the audience seats were smashed into a mess, full of potholes. The audience members who had run away earlier could not help but feel a lingering fear when they saw that. If they were one step slower, they would have become a pile of minced meat by now. The combat strength of a sage was just too terrifying for them. Buddhism is all about compassion. But I don't think sect leader Chu has learned the essence of Buddhism at all. The third prefect snorted. I'm not a Buddhist to begin with, but I do know that Buddhism is both compassionate and enraged. Chu Kuangren sat with his legs crossed, and a majestic Buddhist light surged out from his body, forming a giant golden Buddha in the void. It was the Emperor technique, Tathagata rebirth mantra. The giant golden Buddha sat in the void and suddenly unleashed a palm attack towards the third prefect. Buddhist light gushed out like a tsunami. Within that attack, there was even a surge of Emperor's aura. Faced with that attack, the third prefect's expression changed slightly. A terrifying surge of Taoist rhyme erupted from his body and turned into a barrier. However, even if he was a seven-step sage, his spiritual barrier was nothing in front of that palm attack. With a loud explosion, the spiritual barrier was instantly shattered. The third prefect was blasted a few hundred feet away by that boundless energy. His hair that was initially tied up with a hairpin was instantly scattered by that attack, making him look like a mess. The people from the orthodoxies were speechless when they saw that giant golden Buddha. That power was just too terrifying. He could blast a seven-step sage away with just one palm attack. There are only a handful of people in the Buddhist world who can do that. Chu Kuangren has such a Buddhist cultivation technique, and he even mastered it to such an extent. It's unbelievable. I heard that some people in the Buddhist world call him a reincarnated living Buddha. I thought it was just nonsense, but now it seems that it's not without reason. A Buddhist light like that is unheard of. Chapter 310. Chu Kuangren cast the Tathagata rebirth mantra and repelled the third prefect with a single palm attack. The third prefect's hair was disheveled and he looked shocked. He had heard of the legend of Chu Kuangren killing a sage, but he was a seven-step sage. He was only one step away from becoming a great sage, which was not something an ordinary sage could compare to. However, Chu Kuangren had repelled him with a single palm attack. Moreover, it looked like he was doing it with ease. This guy's combat strength is truly terrifying. Although the third prefect was repelled by a single palm attack and embarrassed himself, he did not attack recklessly. Instead, he was gathering his strength and observing Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren sneered when he saw that. What's wrong? You're a seven-step sage, so afraid that you don't even have the guts to fight? He dispersed the Buddhist light and the giant golden Buddha disappeared. Do you think this will appease my anger? Today I'm going to tear down your first city. Chu Kuangren said as he looked at the 13 floating islands in the sky above the first city. That was the Prefect Island, the place where the 13th prefect lived. He leaped into the sky and turned into a stream of light before he flew out of the floating islands. Let's start with these islands. His speed was extremely fast. His phantom light strike was almost at its peak. By the time the third prefect reacted and wanted to stop him, Chu Kuangren had already arrived above one of the islands. A majestic surge of Taoist rhyme erupted, causing the ground to tremble and terrifying earth chi to soar into the sky. Under the guidance of Chu Kuangren's Taoist rhyme and spiritual power, the earth chi gathered in the sky and formed a towering ancient godly mountain. Stop! The third prefect roared. However, Chu Kuangren ignored him and smashed the godly mountain down. Boom. The godly mountain's impact caused the void to rumble and a violent gale swept across. The entire island shook violently and the ground began to crack. When Chu Kuangren was still in the honorable realm, his human mountain stamp was already powerful enough to fight a sage. Now he had reached the honorable realm. Even a 7-step sage like the third prefect was terrified by the power of that attack. The third prefect arrived in front of the crashing sacred mountain, and an overbearing sage Taoist rhyme erupted from his body. He then slammed his palm forward, and his spiritual power turned into a giant white hand that blotted out the sky and went up against the sacred mountain. Amidst the rumbling, the speed of the divine mountain's descent slowed down. The ground beneath the third prefect's feet instantly caved in. The entire island trembled and tilted. "You want to block it? Can you?" Chu Kuangren snorted softly. The spiritual energy in his body surged and the 6 supreme foundations released a divine light. Countless Taoist rhymes circulated on the surface of his body. It was the supreme Taoist physique, the all techniques returned to one Taoist physique. This Taoist physique was extremely powerful. Not only could it allow Chu Kuangren to activate the transcendental powers, but it could also strengthen any technique in his hands. With the enhancement of the 10,000 techniques coalescence Taoist physique, the power of the human mountain stamp multiplied, and the terrifying divine mountain smashed the giant white hand into pieces. With a loud boom, the divine mountain smashed the third prefect onto the small island. In an instant, an endless amount of earth chi violently attacked the entire island. The island, which was dozens of kilometers in diameter, crumbled, and the floating formation was destroyed as it fell from the sky. The cultivators in the first city were so scared that their faces turned pale when they saw the falling island, and they began to flee for their lives. This Chu Kuangren must be crazy. What he's doing is no different from declaring war on the first city. Sigh, the first city has gone a little overboard this time. They've messed up a great championship like this. ***. Of all the people they could have offended, they just had to provoke that lunatic. Great, now who can stop this guy? The cultivators in the first city could not help but lament as they looked at the fallen island. They were extremely shocked. These 13 islands had been floating above the first city for God knows how many years, and nothing unusual had ever happened to them. Yet now they had been forcefully smashed down by a single person. This incident was a huge shock to the people of the first city. Boom boom, when the small island finally smashed onto the first city, the dust and smoke it stirred up swept across the area like a tsunami. Everything within a radius of a few hundred kilometers was affected, and hundreds of buildings were destroyed. However, Chu Kuangren was not satisfied even after smashing one small island. He dashed towards the second small island. The people from the orthodoxies were dumbfounded when they saw that. ***me, things have gotten out of hand this time. Smashing an island isn't enough. Does Chu Kuangren really plan to tear down the first city of the realm? Such behavior is infuriating. The Thunder Falcon tribe leader, the Linghu clan head, and the others knew that Chu Kuangren was a crazy person, but they did not expect him to be this crazy. The first city of the realm. There were several sages in the city. Even top-notch sage orthodoxies like the Overlord Sage tribe and the Sky Emperor Palace would not dare to make an enemy out of it. Yet Chu Kuangren had already begun to tear down the city. Chu Kuangren arrived above the second small island. There was a prefect who lived here. When he saw Chu Kuangren destroy an island, the prefect was scared out of his wits. He went to the center of the island and activated a formation. A white light barrier suddenly appeared above the small island. Oh, a formation enchanted boundary. But can it stop me? Chu Kuangren sneered. This time he did not use the human mountain stamp. Instead, he took out the descendant self-sword from his waist and swung it. A dazzling purple sword ray pierced through the sky. The sword ray was like a meteor that landed on the white light barrier. Like a boulder falling into a lake, the surface of the white light barrier began to tremble violently, and ripples began to spread outwards. Then cracks began to appear on the barrier. With a loud crack, the light barrier shattered under the purple sword ray, and the unstoppable sword ray landed on the island. The terrifying impact instantly sent the prefect flying, and the floating formation on the island was completely destroyed by the sword ray. With a loud rumbling sound, another island fell to the ground. Without another word, Chu Kuangren headed to the next island. At that moment, the third prefect, who was previously smashed into the island by Chu Kuangren's human mountain stamp, rushed out from the ruins. He came before Chu Kuangren and unleashed his seven-step sage's combat strength to its fullest. Every punch and kick he unleashed had the power to overwhelm the mountains and rivers. Chu Kuangren, the first city, will never let this go. The third prefect's black hair danced wildly as he attacked Chu Kuangren. When Chu Kuangren heard that, he could not help but laugh. Never let this go? Do you think the Black Heaven sect will let this go? With the Descendant's self-sword in his hand, sword chi surged. Even a seven-step sage like the third prefect could not gain much of an advantage against such power. Heavenly Emperor Sage Jiang, what are you waiting for? Do you really want to see him destroy the first city before you show yourself? The third prefect suddenly roared. From the Sky Emperor Palace's direction, a middle-aged man dressed in a golden robe walked out. It was the Sky Emperor Palace's sage. He was the one who bribed the third prefect to get his men to do some dirty tricks during the competition. Chu Kuangren's actions today were all because of him. Chapter 311. Chu Kuangren, a public apology is out of the question, but compensation is negotiable, Heavenly Emperor Sage Jiang said. Screw you. Chu Kuangren sneered. Your Sky Emperor Palace still owes my Black Heaven sect 1 billion top-tier soul stones and 2 sage weapons. Compensation. Do you think I'm interested in your apology? Does that mean there's no room for negotiation? That's right. Either you make a public apology and compensate us by revealing everything you've done to the world and return justice to the Black Heaven sect's disciples. Or, after I'm done destroying the first city, I'll go to the Sky Emperor Palace and have some fun. Chu Kuangren stood in the air and said arrogantly. Heavenly Emperor Sage Jiang and the third prefect looked like they had just swallowed a fly when they heard him. Chu Kuangren, do you have to make such a big deal out of it just for a few disciples? Heavenly Emperor Sage Jiang asked in confusion. That was what everyone was most puzzled about. The Black Heaven sect had already won the competition, and aside from some minor injuries, their disciples were mostly fine. Did Chu Kuangren have to make such a big deal out of some inside information? That was just too crazy. Everyone was confused. They had never seen a sect leader like that. Shouldn't a sect leader look at the bigger picture and prioritize the development of the orthodoxy? However, Chu Kuangren's actions were the exact opposite. He had gone against top-notch sage orthodoxies like the First City and the Sky Emperor Palace just for a few disciples. Wasn't this too silly? Even if he had to ask for more compensation from the First City and the Sky Emperor Palace, what would the Black Heaven sect gain by making them publicly apologize? There was no practical benefit to it at all. Is that necessary? Then let me tell you now. You may not care about justice, but to me it's bigger than the heavens. My disciples have been wronged and treated unfairly. Do you think you can just give me compensation and let it go? Impossible. Chu Kuangren said forcefully. To him, a sect that only cared about benefits would be able to develop, but it would never go far. Murong Xin, Nangong Huang, and the others were the future pillars of the Black Heaven sect. He could not just let go of the unfair treatment they had suffered just because of some benefits, even if Nangong Huang and the others did not care. But he could not. As the Black Heaven sect leader, he had the responsibility and obligation to demand an explanation for these disciples and seek justice. Furthermore, making the Sky Emperor Palace and the First City issue a public apology did not seem to have any practical benefits, but it would increase the Black Heaven sect's prestige, boost the disciples' confidence, and strengthen the disciples' sense of belonging to the Black Heaven sect. These invisible things were the most precious. Chu Kuangren, you're a lunatic. Heavenly King Sage Jiang said with a gloomy face. Madman? For the sake of my Black Heaven sect's disciples, I'm willing to go crazy. Chu Kuangren laughed out loud as a terrifying surge of Taoist rhyme erupted from his body. He then launched a palm attack at another island. The third prefect blocked the attack with his body, but he was still pushed back several thousand feet. Chu Kuangren's combat strength is not to be underestimated. Heavenly Emperor Sage Jiang, let's subdue him together. The third prefect yelled. All right. Heavenly King Sage Jiang nodded. Asking them to make a public apology was something that would ruin their reputations. They would never do such a thing. Under such circumstances, they could only subdue Chu Kuangren first. In fact, they might even be killed. A wisp of killing intent flashed through their eyes when they thought of this. Bring it on. Chu Kuangren took out the sacred emerald sword case, and 365 swords flew out from it, forming an incredibly mysterious sword formation. The Four-Season Sword Formation. That was a legendary grade sword formation, and its power made Heavenly Emperor Sage Jiang and the third prefect's expressions change. The sword chi shuttled back and forth around them. It was extremely sharp, and it contained the mysteries of the 4 seasons, making it very difficult to deal with. Prefects, attack Chu Kuangren's body and distract his mind so that he can't control the sword formation, the 3rd prefect yelled. A few prefects then dashed out from the other islands. Each of them had the cultivation base of an honorable supreme, and some of them were even boundary sages who had ascended. Every one of them was a famous top-notch cultivator. The first city's resources were shocking. Attack. Chu Kuangren, don't you dare think that the first city is weak. Besides the first prefect and the second prefect, the rest of the prefects charged out and unleashed all kinds of different and powerful Taoist rhymes. Their violent auras filled the void and shook the heavens and earth. In the face of the oncoming prefects, Chu Kuangren was fearless. The sword chi within his body circulated, and 4 sword chi transformed into 4 clones. Each of the 4 clones held a treasured sword and faced the prefects head-on. Boom, boom, boom! Terrifying sword chi erupted from the void and slashed at the prefects. One must know that Chu Kuangren's current combat strength was almost unimaginable, and the sword chi clones that he created were not to be underestimated either. Each of them had the combat strength of a boundary sage, and they forcefully held the prefects back. What powerful sword chi clones! This won't do. Those below the sage level can't defeat Chu Kuangren's clones. This guy is too powerful. We can't attack Chu Kuangren's real body. With the power of his sword formation, even the 3rd prefect and the others won't be able to hold on for long. D*Eminent, is there any way to affect the sword formation? At that moment, a sudden black fist chi exploded and landed on the sword formation. It affected the sword formation and created an opening. The 3rd prefect and Heavenly Emperor Sage Jianghu took the opportunity to rush out of the sword formation. Oh, Grey Grill Sage. Chu Kuangren looked into the distance. The Grey Grill Sage slowly retracted his fist. He was the one who attacked just now. Chu Kuangren, you're too overbearing. Today I shall join forces with the other 2 sages to suppress you. We'll let you know that in this world, you can't do whatever you want just because you have the strength. The Grey Grill Sage said righteously with a cold gaze. He had a grudge against Chu Kuangren. Now that the Sky Emperor Palace and the First City had joined forces to deal with Chu Kuangren, how could he let go of such a golden opportunity? The Overlord Sage tribe has been flaunting their strength in the Black Warrior domain, and now they have the nerve to call me overbearing? What a joke. But it doesn't matter now. Didn't you attack to avenge your arm? This time I don't mind chopping off your head as well. Chu Kuangren said with a cold gaze. Too bad you won't be able to do it. A sharp howl echoed in the void. A silver-white thunder falcon descended from the sky and transformed into a silver-haired old man. This old man was extremely muscular and exuded an extremely ferocious aura. He was the Thunder Falcon tribe's sage. Chu Kuangren, you killed the Thunder Falcon tribe's young emperor, Lao. I think it's time for me to settle this score with you. The Thunder Falcon tribe's sage said indifferently. Diske, I can't believe that I've lured the 2 of you here to deal with the First City and the Sky Emperor Palace. Interesting. Chu Kuangren looked into the void and laughed. The sages in the sky don't need to watch anymore. Whoever wants to come down and challenge me, feel free to show yourself. Let's have a good fight. Chapter 312. Chu Kuangren was too powerful. Over the years, several sages had died in his hands, which made many sage orthodoxies extremely wary of him. However, no one had the guts or excuse to confront Chu Kuangren. Now, here was the excuse. Chu Kuangren had won the championship and wreaked havoc in the First City. They could use that as an excuse to assist the 3rd prefect in killing Chu Kuangren. Moreover, the alliance of the sages from the First City, Sky Emperor Palace, Thunder Falcon Tribe, and Overlord Sage Tribe had emboldened them. With so many sages, how could they not deal with Chu Kuangren? At that thought, a few sages were tempted. This was especially true for the sage orthodoxies that Chu Kuangren had won a lot of soul stones from. If Chu Kuangren were to die, they could simply renege on their debt. Chu Kuangren, it's not easy for a junior like you to achieve so much. However, your lack of morals and arrogance is unforgivable. Don't blame us for taking action then. A sage walked out from the void. He was the 3rd forefather of the Linghu clan, which also had a history with the Black Heaven sect. If you want to fight, let's fight. Cut the crap. Chu Kuangren pouted and said. Chu Kuangren, you can only blame yourself for going overboard with your actions. That's why you've angered the masses. Another sage stood out. It was the Tempest Mountain sage who did not have a good relationship with the Black Heaven sect. Chu Kuangren calmly glanced at the sages. Overlord Sage Tribe, Thunder Falcon Tribe, Linghu Clan, Tempest Mountain, First City, Sky Emperor Palace. Are there any other sages who want to mess with me? The sages from the other orthodoxies looked at each other, but no one stood out. Although there were still some who wanted to take this opportunity to kill Chu Kuangren, the consequences would be unimaginable if they failed. They did not want to take the risk so easily. Elder Chu, I'll lend you a hand. At that moment, the School of White Lotus's sage suddenly stood out. She had hesitated before this. However, in the end she still chose to help Chu Kuangren. 6 sages surrounded Chu Kuangren. To the crowd, Chu Kuangren had no chance of turning the tables. It was pointless for the School of White Lotus's sage to help. However, the School of White Lotus and the Black Heaven sect were allies. If she did not step out, their alliance would come to an end. This move of hers could be said to be a huge gamble. She was betting on the fact that Chu Kuangren had a way to turn the situation around. That way, she would be able to secure a stronger alliance for the School of White Lotus. Ah, thank you for your kindness, but this is my Black Heaven sect's matter. Let me handle it myself. With that, Chu Kuangren turned the Descendant Self-Sword in his hand, and the 365 longswords around him aimed at the 6 sages. Come, let me experience the skills of the sages. Chu Kuangren smirked without fear. In fact, everyone could see excitement in his eyes. Lunatic. This fellow was truly a lunatic. The sages thought to themselves. Facing a sage with a cultivation below that of a sage was already unimaginable, but he was actually excited to face 6 sages with a cultivation below that of a sage. If he was not a lunatic, then what was he? Quite a number of cultivators in the first city had noticed this. All of them were dumbfounded. Facing 6 sages by himself. This was something that they did not even dare to imagine. Meanwhile, the Sky Prides felt an indescribable sense of defeat when they saw that. They understood that Chu Kuangren's spirit alone was something they could never hope to achieve. Chu Kuangren, how dare he do this? Facing 6 sages with a cultivation below that of a sage? Only Chu Kuangren would do something as crazy as this. This guy is really too scary. Countless people looked at the white-robed figure in the sky, feeling that the petite figure had an unimaginable majesty. In the crowd, Lan Yu, Nangong Huang, and the others also saw Chu Kuangren. They stared at that figure with endless passion in their eyes. Is the sect leader doing this for us? Jin Fian murmured. That's right. Lan Yu nodded. With Master's personality, he would never sit back and watch the people around him be treated unfairly. Sect leader, Nangong Huang and the others had an indescribable feeling. They were touched, resentful and unwilling. They were touched by Chu Kuangren's actions, resentful of the shameless actions of the Sky Emperor Palace in the First City, but more than that, they were unwilling. They were too weak. They could only rely on Chu Kuangren to protect them. If they were stronger, why would they let Chu Kuangren face all of this alone? Lan Yu had the same thought too. She had never yearned for power as much as she did at that moment. In the sky, Chu Kuangren was facing 6 sages alone. Just as he was about to activate the sword formation, the Thunder Falcon tribe's sage took out a black rock and threw it into the air. The rock crackled with the power of thunder and produced a strong magnetic force that greatly increased the difficulty of Chu Kuangren's sword formation. Countless swords vibrated violently in mid-air. Oh, a prime magnet. No, this is a prime magnet. Chu Kuangren narrowed his eyes. A normal prime magnet would need at least 500 kilograms to affect his sword formation. The Shang clan had used this trick to restrain his sword formation before, but the Thunder Falcon tribe sage had only taken out 1. Forget 500 kilograms, he did not even know if there was even 1 kilogram. However, that terrifying magnetic force was even more terrifying than what Chu Kuangren had encountered in the Shang clan. Hence, this was no ordinary prime magnet. It was the essence of a prime magnet, the prime magnet. This piece of mother magnets was at least a saint-tier treasure. Chu Kuangren, we've carefully studied your capabilities. Do you really think that we wouldn't be prepared for you? The Thunder Falcon tribe's sage smiled. The other sage's eyes lit up. His sword formation has been restrained, so his combat strength has been greatly reduced. Let's take this opportunity to suppress him. Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang said loudly. Third forefather Linghu was the first to attack. Using his finger as a sword, a majestic sword-based Taoist rhyme gathered and turned into a terrifying sword shadow that slashed at Chu Kuangren. That attack caused the void to rumble as if it was about to be torn apart. Brilliant heaven-shaking fist. The Grey Grill Sage also attacked. With a punch, the violent chi turned into a black fish chi that descended like the might of the heavens. Azure Dragon Sword Art. The Tempest Mountain Sage moved his finger and a sword chi took the form of a dragon that carried a violent sage Taoist rhyme. The combined attack of the three sages was incredibly powerful. Chu Kuangren's sword formation was restrained, but a mysterious Taoist rhyme erupted from his body and formed white lotuses in the void. It was the sage ruler technique, the white lotus light of purification. The white lotuses contained an unparalleled defensive ability that disintegrated the sword chi and fist chi. However, it was still a sage-grade attack. Even if Chu Kuangren fully activated the white lotus light of purification, he still could not completely block it. The sword chi pierced through his shoulder and the fist chi landed on his chest. Chu Kuangren was instantly sent flying and landed on the floating island far away. With a loud crash, the entire island shook for a moment. Smoke and dust filled the air and everyone quickly looked over. Did he succeed? Chapter 313. Dust billowed around the island and it seemed to tilt a little. Everyone looked over and saw a white-robed figure standing proudly in the dust. He's not dead. Sure enough, it won't be that easy to defeat him. If he's that easy to defeat, then he wouldn't be called Chu Kuangren. Let's be careful. The sages looked extremely solemn. At the same time they felt that it was ridiculous. They were sages after all. It was ridiculous for 6 sages to be so serious when they were fighting against someone who was not a sage. No one would believe it if word got out. Amidst the dust, Chu Kuangren rubbed his chest. Diske, a sage's attack really hurts. If not for my immortal body, I wouldn't even be able to stand up. He stared at the 6 sages in the sky. After all, he was only an honorable. Although he could fight against a sage with his strong foundation, it would still be difficult for him to fight against 6 sages at once. With my current strength, even a sage ruler technique like the human mountain stamp can only deal limited damage to a sage. Only an emperor technique can suppress these 6 shameless B******. The heaven-slaying sword-drawing technique can only be fully unleashed with the descendant self-sword. However, the presence of the prime magnet will affect my performance. Let's try the Tathagata rebirth mantra. Chu Kuangren murmured. As he spoke, he took a step forward. An incredibly majestic Buddhist will erupted, and 1,000,000 Buddhist rays shot into the sky, forming into a 1,000-foot-tall golden Buddha in the void. The Buddha unleashed a palm attack from afar, and Sanskrit chants filled the sky. It was a horrifying attack. The sages immediately joined forces to resist it. The sword chi and fist strength collided with the Buddha's palm, causing a huge shockwave to erupt. The sea of clouds around them tumbled, and the island beneath Chu Kuangren's feet trembled a few times. It looked like it was about to collapse. However, Chu Kuangren did not care. On the contrary, he stomped his feet on the ground and unleashed his human mountain strength, causing the entire island to tremble even more violently. The floating formation on the island was broken. Another island fell from the sky. ********************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** and channeled his spiritual power, which was mixed with sage Taoist rhyme, to form a giant white hand that charged towards the Buddha. However, Chu Kuangren did not retreat nor evade. Instead, he controlled the giant Buddha to retaliate. Two large hands, one gold and one white, slammed into each other. The energy that had been released stirred up a storm in the first city. Countless buildings were destroyed and turned into ruins. The third prefect retreated hundreds of feet after the giant white hand was shattered. Everyone, if you have any tricks up your sleeves, don't hide them anymore. Chu Kuangren is not an easy opponent, so let's give it our all, the third prefect said loudly. All right. The Thunder Falcon tribe's saint shouted. Dazzling lightning burst out from his body, and his eyes seemed to have turned into two glowing pearls, blooming with white light. Flaming sun thunder. With a loud roar, the Thunder Falcon tribe saint threw out a punch. A ferocious white thunderbolt wrapped in a white flame smashed towards the giant golden Buddha. Chu Kuangren felt a sense of threat from the lightning. Yang Flaming Thunder. Is it fused with the heavenly flames Yang Flaming Thunder? Chu Kuangren activated his Eye of Revelation and understood the abilities of the Thunder Falcon tribe's sage. He also understood the nature of the dazzling sun lightning. He commanded the giant Buddha to unleash a palm attack. With a loud explosion, the ancient Buddha's palm trembled violently. Cracks began to appear on it under the attack of the dazzling sun lightning. Still not enough. Take my next move. Dragon Tiger Tempest. The Tempest Mountain sage attacked with both his left and right hands. As if they had transformed into a pair of peerless divine swords, an incredibly powerful sword chi erupted. The sword chi intertwined and turned into a dragon and a tiger that charged forward. The domineering energy landed on the giant golden Buddha's body, and cracks began to appear on its surface. When the other sages saw that, they too joined in and unleashed their terrifying energies one after another. Under the attacks of 6 sages, even the Tathagata rebirth mantra could not withstand it. It turned into golden light spots and dissipated. The moment the giant Buddha was destroyed, the Buddhist light around Chu Kuangren's body dissipated, and in its place was a towering ferocious chi. It only took an instant for him to turn from a Buddha into a ferocious chi. Under this ferocious chi the entire world trembled. Even the sages felt their hearts palpitate. This is the infallible tormented physique. One of the sages who had watched the battle with the Shang clan said solemnly. Then, the ferocious chi that filled the sky formed into a black figure behind Chu Kuangren. An earth-shattering battle roar was heard in the void, filled with an undefeatable and peerless battle intent that could send chills down one's spine. This is the divine ferocious avatar. The infallible tormented physique's divine power. No, it's not over yet. After Chu Kuangren had activated the infallible tormented physique, countless Taoist rhymes appeared on his body. Buddhist Dao, Sword Dao, Fist Dao, Spear Dao, Five Ways Dao, Yin-Yang Dao, those were the myriad of Taoist rhymes in this world. At that moment, Chu Kuangren seemed to have transformed into a Taoist ancestor. Countless Taoist rhymes merged within his body and formed an incredibly powerful transcendental energy that resonated with the infallible tormented physique. Exquisite 9 Orifices Sword Heart activate. The Green Lotus Sword Song, the 9 Heaven Sword Prison, and the Sword of the Heavenly Way, the 3 Taoist body visions that belong to the exquisite 9 Orifices Sword Heart were all activated. The 6 supreme foundation levels within Chu Kuangren's body unleashed an endless divine light as the golden jade body activated. Extremely pure spiritual power surged within his meridians and let out a roar that sounded like a tidal wave. Coupled with the power of the 3 supreme Taoist physiques, Chu Kuangren's aura was so powerful that he was like a supreme deity king. A majestic domineering aura swept across the entire first city. Every cultivator looked up at Chu Kuangren with an extremely shocked expression. Is this Chu Kuangren's true form? What a terrifying aura. How many Taoist physiques does he have? This is just too unbelievable. His body seems to contain an endless amount of Taoist rhymes. Could it be the transcendent coalescence Taoist physique that is ranked 3rd among the supreme Taoist physiques? Everyone was extremely shocked. Inside a restaurant, an old man in a plain robe looked at Chu Kuangren in the sky in amazement. 4 Taoist physiques, one of which is a pinnacle physique while the other 3 are supreme Taoist physiques. No wonder he's the biggest anomaly in history. What a freak. Facing Chu Kuangren in his peak form, the 6 sages had a solemn look on their faces. However, they were not too shocked. Back during the battle with the Shang clan, many sages were already aware that Chu Kuangren possessed 3 supreme Taoist physiques. Since they dared to fight Chu Kuangren, they had naturally expected such a situation. Everyone, let's give it our all. If we don't get rid of this person, I'm afraid that for the next 10,000 years, even our descendants will have to live under his shadow. 3rd Forefather Linghu said solemnly. It was not wrong for a person to be outstanding, but it was a sin to be too outstanding. Chu Kuangren's excellence had already made the sages fearful and even fearful. They could not imagine how much Chu Kuangren would grow if he was given a few more years. When that time came, they would probably have to live under his shadow for the rest of their lives. Their descendants would not be able to see the light of day. That was right. Chu Kuangren's existence itself had become a sin. The sages could not tolerate it. That was the biggest sin in this world. Chapter 314. With the exquisite 9 Orifices Sword Heart, infallible tormented physique and transcendent coalescence Taoist physique unleashed at the same time, Chu Kuangren's combat strength shocked the 6 sages at the scene. They had no choice but to stay alert. Slash. Chu Kuangren focused his sword finger and a giant sword shadow formed. The domineering sword chi was unleashed towards 3rd Forefather Linghu. The power of this attack caused his pupils to shrink slightly, and he used all his strength to slash out with his sword. However, under the power of this sword, he was still sent flying, and a huge wound appeared on his saint body. Don't you dare be so arrogant. The 3rd prefect took a step forward and a surge of Taoist rhymes circulated around his body. Then a white armor appeared on his body. It was a sage-level armor. The 3rd prefect usually did not use it, but against a powerful opponent like Chu Kuangren, he had no choice but to use it. With the white armor covering his body, the third prefect charged towards Chu Kuangren and attacked him with one palm attack after another. Chu Kuangren unleashed a punch that was filled with ferocious qi and transcendental strength to form a giant fist that sent the third prefect flying. That punch could easily kill an ordinary sage. However, the third prefect was protected by the sage-level armor, so he was not hurt at all. "I'll hold him back. You guys think of a way to kill him." The third prefect yelled and charged towards Chu Kuangren again. He was already a 7-step sage, but with the help of the sage-level armor, his strength had surpassed the limits of an ordinary sage and was close to the level of a great sage. Chu Kuangren's divine ferocious avatar and the third prefect's Taoist rhyme collided, and the resulting shockwave destroyed another 2 islands. The third prefect was furious and anxious at the same time. He was furious because Chu Kuangren had already destroyed 5 of the 13 islands, and he was anxious because if he did not subdue Chu Kuangren soon, the first city might really be destroyed by him. Dazzling Sun Lightning. Dragon Tiger Tempest. 6 Compounded Palms. Brilliant Heaven Shaking Fist. Aside from third forefather Linghu who was sent flying by Chu Kuangren's attack, the other 4 sages took the opportunity while the third prefect was holding Chu Kuangren back to attack at the same time. All sorts of powerful sage techniques were unleashed towards Chu Kuangren. Under such a mighty force, Chu Kuangren's divine ferocious avatar trembled continuously, and his Taoist physique transformations also began to show signs of collapsing. However, Chu Kuangren was not afraid at all in this situation. Instead, the excitement in his eyes intensified. "Come on. It's been a long time since I've fought to my heart's content. What other tricks do you have? Show them all at once." Perhaps Chu Kuangren was born with a thirst for battle. Otherwise, he would not have turned the entire firmament star upside down all these years. At this moment, he seemed to be at a disadvantage, but his fighting spirit did not decrease in the slightest. Instead, it grew fiercer as the battle went on. The infallible tormented body, which was born for battle, was being used to its fullest in this state. The heavenly ferocious Dharma form's murderous aura and battle intent became stronger and stronger. Coupled with the support of the Dharma power, the 5 sages could not suppress it even if they joined forces. Buzz. At this moment, a sword light suddenly tore through the void. The sword shadow pierced through the air towards Chu Kuangren. It went through the divine ferocious avatar and landed on Chu Kuangren's body. That's the Linghu clan's heart-slaying sword. It's the heart-piercing sword that specifically targets one's Taoist core. In the distance, third forefather Linghu, who was sent flying by the sword, looked at Chu Kuangren with a face full of joy. "I did it." The heart-piercing sword was the Linghu family's ultimate technique. This sword was specifically targeted at one's Taoist core. If one's Taoist core was not strong enough, they would be affected by it and even fall into the realm of inner demons, unable to extricate themselves. The heart-piercing sword was also known as one of the most difficult sword techniques in Firmament Star. It was the Linghu family's most powerful technique. "Do you think you can shake my Taoist core with that heart-piercing sword?" At this moment, Chu Kuangren, who was hit by the heart-piercing sword, suddenly sneered. He was not affected at all. After all, he had the rock-steady Taoist core. Even the heart-piercing sword that third forefather Linghu wielded could not do anything to him. "I'll kill you first." Due to the prime magnet's influence, Chu Kuangren did not use the descendant self-sword. Instead, he focused his sword fingers and released a sword chi. Although he did not have the descendant self-sword, the sword chi's power was enough to kill a sage. Third forefather Linghu, who was already heavily injured and had expended a large amount of spiritual power to activate the heart-piercing sword, could not defend himself against this attack. "Save me." Third forefather Linghu screamed in fear. Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang suddenly appeared in front of him, roared and unleashed a palm attack that had the power to destroy everything in its path. The palm chi and sword chi collided, and the violent shockwave sent both Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang and third forefather Linghu flying. "Oh, I'm quite lucky," Chu Kuangren said calmly. He did not expect Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang to act so quickly, saving third forefather Linghu at such a critical moment. "Is it that dark red mist?" Chu Kuangren noticed that Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang's body was emitting wisps of dark red mist, and his aura was constantly rising. He activated his Eye of Revelation. Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang, 7-step Sage Cultivation level. He's currently burning a drop of Sage Ruler blood essence, and his strength is continuously rising. The Eye of Revelation's feedback appeared in his vision. Sage Ruler Blood Essence. Chu Kuangren came to a sudden realization. At that moment, a similarly terrifying aura erupted not far away. Grey Grill Sage took out an entire bottle of medicinal pills and gulped them down. His overlord physique strength had increased by a level. Grey Grill Sage, 5th step Sage Cultivation level. He consumed some substance that can stimulate his overlord physique, and his strength is continuously rising. Looks like he's planning to fight me to the death. Chu Kuangren smirked. As Grey Grill Sage and Heavenly Emperor Sage Jianghu revealed their trump cards, the other sages followed suit. The Saint of Fengyun Mountain took out a sword. It was a wooden sword, but it contained a terrifying sword Taoist rhyme. The Thunder Falcon Tribe Sage used a secret technique to increase the strength of his Flaming Sun Lightning by a level. As they revealed their trump cards, the sages once again charged towards Chu Kuangren, and this time, their attacks were even more terrifying. The Tempest Mountain Sage swung his wooden sword, and a gray-robed figure appeared in the void, slashing at Chu Kuangren. The Taoist rhyme contained in that sword attack had exceeded the limits of an ordinary sage, and the extremely violent sword chi landed on the Divine Ferocious Avatar. In the blink of an eye, the Divine Ferocious Avatar started to crack. Brilliant Heaven-Shaking Fist. 6 compounded palms. Grey Grill Sage and Heavenly Emperor Sage Jianghu attacked together. The fist and palm chi contained an incredibly majestic Taoist rhyme that instantly shattered the Divine Ferocious Avatar into countless wisps of black chi. Flaming Sun Lightning Heaven-Shattering Strike. The Thunder Falcon Tribe Sage activated his lightning, and the white flaming lightning instantly landed on Chu Kuangren's body. The exquisite 9 orifices Sword Heart's 3 great Taoist physique transformations dissipated along with his injury. The third prefect also seized the opportunity to unleash a palm attack that sent Chu Kuangren flying. Bang bang bang, Chu Kuangren's body flew out like a cannonball, smashing through dozens of buildings before he landed on the ground, creating a huge crater where spider web-like cracks continued to spread. I guess we've succeeded this time. Grey Grill Sage looked at the crater and said, even a great sage might not be able to withstand such an attack. No matter how strong Chu Kuangren was, he should be dead by now. The crowd thought to themselves. However, when the smoke and dust dissipated, the crowd could not help but narrow their eyes. They saw Chu Kuangren standing in the middle of the crater. The jade crown on his head had been shattered, and his black hair was scattered all over his shoulders, dancing in the wind. Other than that, there was not a single injury on his body. It was as if the sage's attacks had no effect on him at all. You guys have used all your strength and revealed all your trump cards, right? Now it's my turn to reveal my trump card. Chu Kuangren waved his sleeves and a pitch-black guqin appeared in front of him. Everyone, let me play a song. Chapter 315. Everyone, let me play a song for you. Chu Kuangren said indifferently as he held the lingering song guqin in front of his chest. Everyone's eyes narrowed when they saw his posture. What? He's fine. D*MN, is this guy immortal? Guqin? Does he know Guqin Dao? Everyone was shocked that Chu Kuangren could remain unscathed under their attacks. At the same time, they were also puzzled that Chu Kuangren was an expert in Guqin Dao. Stop fooling around. Let's continue. The third prefect snorted. At that moment, Chu Kuangren's fingers plucked the guqin strings. With a pull and release, a sonorous guqin melody spread along with a vast surge of Taoist rhyme. At that instant, the third prefect and the others could not help but tremble. First movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords, boundless expanse of heaven and earth. Chu Kuangren plucked the guqin strings with all 10 of his fingers, and a vast surge of Taoist rhyme combined with spiritual power turned into guqin music that reverberated between the heavens and earth. The third prefect could only feel a violent impact on his mind as if the heavens and earth were exerting a tremendous amount of pressure on him. Their Taoist rhymes were being suppressed by this guqin music. Compared to the boundless expanse of heaven and earth, their Taoist rhymes were not even worth mentioning. Everyone was shocked. It was their first time witnessing such a powerful guqin music Taoist rhyme. What a terrifying guqin music. I can't believe he has such a technique up his sleeve. This won't do. Under his guqin music, our surroundings seem to have turned into a domain. Our Taoist rhymes are being suppressed here. Hurry up and stop him. The sages wanted to attack. The guqin music changed its tune. Like a storm, the chaotic guqin music erupted with an even more terrifying Taoist rhyme. Second movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords, Stormy Town. The Guqin music transformed into a storm of wind blades and swords that rushed out. The sages' Taoist rhymes were already suppressed by the Guqin music. Now that they were being attacked by the storm of wind blades, they were in a sorry state. **Eminent. The third prefect relied on his sage armor to withstand the storm of wind blades and swords and charged towards Chu Kuangren. When he got closer, he gathered all of his spiritual power and formed a giant white hand that attacked, intending to stop Chu Kuangren's Guqin music. Chu Kuangren then plucked a string and channeled his majestic spiritual power and Taoist rhymes into it. 8 Celestial Demonic Chords, third movement, Great Reverie Chime. With a clang, the sound of a bowstring was heard. The sound was as loud as a bell, and a majestic sound wave instantly erupted, turning into a terrifying impact that tore the white hand apart and smashed onto the third prefect's body. With a loud boom, the third prefect was sent flying by the terrifying sound wave even though he was protected by a sacred weapon. The tremendous recoil impacted his limbs, bones, and organs. Puff! The third prefect could not hold it in any longer and spat out a mouthful of blood. What terrifying music! Not far away, a white-haired old man's face was filled with shock. That old man was the sage of the Heaven Chord sect. The Heaven Chord sect was the orthodoxy that was most proficient in sound attacks, and this sage was a rare zither master. However, after witnessing Chu Kuangren's 8 celestial demonic chords, he felt that his Guqin music paled in comparison. This kind of zither music was too terrifying. This was not the kind of music that should exist in the mortal realm. After sending the third prefect flying, Chu Kuangren's Guqin music changed again. Vaguely, the crowd could hear the sound of thousands of soldiers charging at them from all directions. It was as if they were in the middle of a celestial battlefield. 8 celestial demonic chords, ambush from 10 sides. Clang clang clang, the Guqin music reverberated between heaven and earth, and the sound of soldiers charging at them was endless. The terrifying Taoist rhymes crashed onto the sages like a tidal wave. Their minds and physical bodies were being tortured by the Guqin music. The Guqin music turned into sharp blades that wreaked havoc between heaven and earth. Third forefather Linghu, who was already heavily injured, could no longer withstand it and was beheaded on the spot. Even his sage spirit could not escape. Sages! The Linghu clan head roared in sorrow. The Linghu clan only had 2 sages, and the death of either one was a huge blow to them. 6 compounded palms. Dazzling sun lightning. The sages at the scene unleashed their attacks towards Chu Kuangren. However, their attacks were disintegrated by the Guqin music before they could even get close to Chu Kuangren's clone. Instead, it was the sages who were injured by the Guqin music's Taoist rhymes. Even their sage bodies would not last long. Chu Kuangren, stop right now. Let's talk this out, the sages hurriedly said. However, Chu Kuangren ignored them and continued to play the Guqin music. The rich Guqin music's Taoist rhymes spread with him as the center. The spiritual energy within a 1,000-kilometer radius was disturbed by the Guqin music, causing it to become restless. Countless cultivators felt their hearts skip a beat when they saw that. This is too terrifying. Just his Guqin music alone is enough to render the 6 sages helpless. This kind of ability is too terrifying. What kind of Guqin music is this? Among them, the Heaven Chord sect's cultivators were the most shocked. They were cultivators of the musical death Tao, so they could feel the terrifying power contained in Chu Kuangren's Guqin music more than the other cultivators. I'm afraid he didn't even use 1/10 of his strength in the Guqin duel that day on the street. Lady Snowflake said as she looked at Chu Kuangren with fear. Even the Heaven Chord sect's most advanced musical death technique was nothing compared to Chu Kuangren's 8 celestial demonic chords. Boom. At that moment, a terrifying Taoist rhyme suddenly erupted from a small floating island in the sky, and a palm energy swept across the sky. The palm energy was so powerful that it caused the void to rumble. And its target was Chu Kuangren. Oh, another sage. Chu Kuangren raised an eyebrow and plucked the strings of his Guqin. The celestial demonic third song, the melodious chime, was unleashed. The sound of the zither collided with the palm energy, and the energy that spread out was like a storm. Everything in the surroundings was destroyed as if it was withered. Even the few sages were sent flying. Chu Kuangren was also pushed back a few dozen meters. The sudden palm energy interrupted his Guqin music, and the sages breathed a sigh of relief. They felt like they had just survived a disaster. Everyone looked at the source of that palm energy. A person slowly walked out from that small island. It was a white-haired old man in a long white robe. With a single step, he traversed thousands of meters and arrived in front of the crowd. He stared at Chu Kuangren with a burning gaze. "Sir, what is your purpose in causing such a ruckus in the first city?" "To destroy all of you," Chu Kuangren said. The old man's expression darkened. "There's no such thing as hatred for no reason. Please speak frankly." "Oh, it seems like you don't know about this." Chu Kuangren looked at the old man in surprise. Then he briefly explained how the first city had colluded with the Sky Emperor Palace to target the Black Heaven sect during the competition. The old man was stunned when he heard that. He looked at Chu Kuangren with a strange gaze. He wants to destroy the first city just because of a few disciples? Where did this lunatic come from? He glared at the third prefect who was not far away. "I entrusted the first city to you, but I didn't expect you to cause such a huge mess. I'll settle this with you once this matter is over. It's my fault for not managing this place well and disturbing the city lord." This old man was the city lord of the first city. He was also the #1 prefect among the 13 prefects. He was initially in closed-door meditation, but Chu Kuangren had caused such a huge commotion that he had no choice but to come out early. Otherwise, the first city would have been destroyed by him. Chapter 316. Sect Leader Chu, the first city is indeed in the wrong. How about this? We can compensate the Black Heaven sect with 500 million top-tier soul stones. What do you think? The first prefect said. Everyone was shocked to hear that. 500 million top-tier soul stones was the first thing he said. The first city was really rich. Sure. Chu Kuangren nodded. Also, I hope you can arrange for a public apology as soon as possible. The first prefect pondered for a while before he said, Sect Leader Chu, 500 million top-tier soul stones is a huge sum for a sage orthodoxy. I hope you'll stop while you're ahead. What do you mean? Chu Kuangren's gaze turned cold. Sect Leader Chu, please don't mention the public apology anymore. 500 million soul stones is already the first city's biggest concession. The first prefect said. I understand. Chu Kuangren smiled. Everyone was stunned to hear that. Was Chu Kuangren planning to stop just like that? However, when they thought about it, 500 million soul stones was not a small sum. It was not impossible for Chu Kuangren to stop after receiving such a huge benefit. However, the sages did not feel relieved when Chu Kuangren stopped. Instead, they felt extremely frustrated. 6 of them could not suppress Chu Kuangren, and one of them was even killed by him. On the other hand, Chu Kuangren was not only unscathed, he even received 500 million soul stones as compensation. After this battle, the sages were completely humiliated. It's great that Sect Leader Chu can look at the bigger picture. The first prefect nodded. But then, a look of astonishment appeared on his face. Chu Kuangren, who was opposite him, had his lingering melody guqin suspended in the air with all 10 fingers on its strings. He said, City Lord, please make your move. Hearing this, everyone sucked in a cold breath. Chu Kuangren had no intention of stopping at all. He was determined to fight to the death with the first city. Either a public apology and compensation, or the first city would be torn down. Other than that, he would not make any concessions. The first prefect's expression darkened when he saw how determined Chu Kuangren was. Sect Leader Chu, 500 million top-tier soul stones is a lot. Why do you have to fight to the death with us? Do you think my Black Heaven sect looks like we lack soul stones? Chu Kuangren said. What kind of joke was this? You want to let this matter go with only 500 million spirit stones. He had won a total of 5,700,000,000 spirit stones from 15 sage orthodoxies in just 2 bets, so why would he be short of 500 million spirit stones? It seems like we're destined to fight today, Sect Leader Chu, the first prefect said coldly. If you don't want to fight, then apologize. Let's get this out of the way first. Fists and legs have no eyes. If anything happens to Sect Leader Chu, the first city will not be held responsible. The first prefect was also infuriated by Chu Kuangren. As City Lord, you can give it a try. Chu Kuangren said. He was now at the 3rd stage of the immortal body, so even if he stood still, his opponent might not be able to kill him. Arrogant Junior, I'll show you that there's always someone better than you out there. The first prefect said coldly, and an extremely overbearing sage Taoist rhyme suddenly erupted from his body. This Taoist rhyme was much stronger than the other sages. Even Chu Kuangren was forced back a few feet. When the other sages saw this, their expressions changed. This aura is that of a great sage. The city lord of the first city is already a great sage. On the surface, there aren't many sage orthodoxies that have a great sage. The city lord of the first city has really hidden his strength well. Everyone was shocked, but Chu Kuangren was not afraid at all. When the first prefect first appeared, he had already observed his opponent's cultivation level. Since he dared to fight again, he must have something up his sleeves. He held his guqin in front of him and said, "The first 4 movements of the 8 celestial demonic chords have already rendered the 6 sages helpless. Do you dare to listen to the last 4 movements, city lord?" "Please." The first prefect stood with his hands behind his back. Since things had come to this, he had no other way out. Clang. Guqin music filled the air. The boundless intent between the heavens and earth crashed towards the first prefect, and then countless guqin music transformed into sharp blades that swept out. Boom. A terrifying sound wave surged towards the first prefect. Boundless heavens and earth, wind and rain, resounding golden bell. The first 3 movements of the 8 celestial demonic chords were played one after another. The first prefect took a step forward and the great sage Taoist rhymes on his body circulated, forming an invisible barrier around him. The boundless intent could not affect him at all. When the guqin music transformed into sharp blades that struck the barrier, it only caused ripples to form on its surface. When the third movement, resounding golden bell, transformed into sound waves, the first prefect raised his hand and a terrifying surge of spiritual power erupted from the center of his palm. With a loud explosion, the void exploded, and the shockwave swept across dozens of kilometers. Meanwhile, the first prefect stood where he was, unmoved. The other sages could not help but exclaim at that. A great sage is indeed a great sage. His strength is indeed powerful. Yeah, Chu Kuangren's guqin music has rendered us helpless, but it can't do anything to a great sage. Although there's only a difference of 1 word between a sage and a great sage, the difference in combat strength is like the difference between heaven and earth. No matter how strong Chu Kuangren is, how can he compare to a great sage? The Grey Grill sage snorted coldly. However, Chu Kuangren, who was not far away, plucked the guqin strings with all 10 of his fingers. He did not seem to care that his attacks had no effect on the first prefect at all. Countless Taoist rhymes circulated around his body, and an incredibly mysterious transcendental strength was added to the guqin music Taoist rhymes. It was the transcendent coalescence Taoist physique. With the Taoist physique's support, Chu Kuangren's guqin music became even stronger. The sound of a powerful army suddenly rang out as if it had turned into an ancient battlefield. It was the celestial demonic 4th movement, ambush from 10 sides. The guqin music had the effect of distracting one's mind. The first prefect focused his mind and steadied his Taoist core before he dashed towards Chu Kuangren. He raised his hand and unleashed a majestic palm energy. However, Chu Kuangren's tune suddenly increased in intensity, and an unparalleled guqin music Taoist rhyme that seemed to carry 1,000 kilometers of mountains and rivers erupted. 5th movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords, engulfing qi. The majestic guqin music erupted and shook the heavens and earth. The first prefect's palm energy was instantly shattered. The first prefect himself was forced back by the waves of guqin music. Its power was so powerful that his expression changed slightly. What a terrifying guqin music. The first prefect's expression turned serious as the spiritual power within his body surged and formed an extremely sturdy spiritual barrier around him. The barrier resisted the guqin music's attack. Then the first prefect raised his palm to the sky and gathered the spiritual qi of the heavens and earth into his palm, forming a huge spiritual qi vortex that was hundreds of meters in diameter. Spiritual accumulation strike. The first prefect hurled out the spiritual qi vortex in his hand. The vortex contained a horrifying power that could destroy the world. Before the palm qi even reached him, Chu Kuangren could already feel an immense pressure. 6th movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords, raging waves crashing shore. Chu Kuangren let out a low roar and guqin music filled the air. The void let out a tsunami-like sound, and under the guqin music, the void rumbled and trembled. The guqin music and the palm qi collided with each other, and a terrifying explosion swept out with a terrifying shockwave. The clouds within a 1,000-kilometer radius tumbled and shattered, and even the sages could not help but take a few steps back. At that moment, Chu Kuangren could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Chapter 317. Puff. Chu Kuangren could not help but vomit a mouthful of blood. The collision between the 8 chords of demons and gods and the great sage's attack had caused him to suffer some backlash. It was inevitable that he would be injured. In that instant, at least half of his 5 viscera and 6 bowels were injured. However, when he vomited blood, this small injury was healed by the immortal body, so he didn't panic at all. However, this was not the case in the eyes of others. Chu Kuangren, it's already an amazing feat for you to achieve this with your cultivation level. You should stop now, the first prefect said. In fact, he had thought of killing Chu Kuangren right here and now. But after weighing the pros and cons, he gave up on the idea. It was not that he was afraid of Chu Kuangren. It was because he did not have the confidence to kill Chu Kuangren. The strength of the young man in front of him shocked him. He even felt that if the young man wanted to leave, he wouldn't be able to stop him. Stop? How is this possible? Chu Kuangren, do you really want to die? Is it worth it to go this far just for a few disciples? The first prefect could not understand Chu Kuangren's obsession at all. What nonsense are you spouting? You make it sound like you can kill me. There are still 2 more pieces of the 8 celestial demonic cords. Do you still dare to listen to them? Chu Kuangren, don't be too stubborn. Do you dare or not? Chu Kuangren looked at him calmly. The first prefect was so angry that he was speechless. He felt like he was playing the lute to a cow. Why did this person in front of him not understand human language? Please. The first prefect took a deep breath and said, the 8 celestial demonic cords had a total of 8 tunes. But with his current cultivation level, he could only play the first 6 tunes. The last 2 songs were too difficult. But if it was a few days ago, he would have had no choice. But things were different now. 9 deaths blazing blood art activate. A terrifying wave of energy erupted from Chu Kuangren's body, and waves of blood-colored flames suddenly appeared on the surface of his body. These flames were filled with an incredibly dense life essence. As the flames burned, Chu Kuangren's aura rose at an insane rate. When some of the saints saw the blood-colored flames, their faces immediately became somewhat bewildered. Could this be 9 deaths burning blood art? One of the sages gritted his teeth and said with a trembling voice. He looked at Chu Kuangren in disbelief. 9 deaths burning blood art. Upon hearing this name, all the sages turned pale with fright. This was because this technique was too famous among the sages. In the past, an ordinary sage had used this technique to kill a great sage, and it was clearly recorded in the ancient records. However, they were even more aware of the side effects of this technique. Burning one's blood essence in exchange for cultivation. This is no different from a suicidal cultivation technique. No matter how powerful it is, no one would dare to use it. Crazy, Chu Kuangren, you're AF * king lunatic. A few sages could not help but exclaim in horror. At this moment, they could not help but feel a sense of fear in their hearts. They did not expect Chu Kuangren to do such a crazy thing just for the sake of justice. He even used a suicidal technique like the 9 deaths burning blood art. If they had known this would happen, they would not have dared to find trouble with Chu Kuangren even if they were beaten to death. Who knew if this guy would burn all of his blood essence and drag them down to hell with him? Most importantly, Chu Kuangren had the ability to do so. Before using the 9 deaths burning blood art, Chu Kuangren could already suppress 6 sages on his own. After using the 9 deaths burning blood art, even if a great sage tried to stop him, it would not be difficult for him to kill them. Even the first prefect was dumbfounded. Did he have to go this far just for a few disciples? Did he not even want to live anymore? Lunatic. This guy was definitely a lunatic. Are you ready, City Lord? Chu Kuangren said calmly. A hint of pain appeared in his eyes. Burning one's blood essence was definitely not a good thing. The intense pain was enough to make an ordinary person wail in pain. Although Chu Kuangren had the immortal body, which allowed him to recover his blood essence after it was burned, the pain was real. However, the pain was real. Chu Kuangren, why did you do this? Say no more. Chu Kuangren placed all 10 of his fingers on the guqin strings. The spiritual power within his body surged out. Before the guqin music could play, the Taoist rhyme of the 8 celestial demonic chords had already spread out. Sensing the extraordinary Taoist rhyme, the first prefect's expression became unprecedentedly serious. His great sage-level spiritual power and Taoist rhyme seeped out of his body, and he even took out a dark golden iron staff that was covered in runes. That was the first prefect's weapon. Ever since he became a great sage, he had rarely used a weapon. Even a 7-step sage would not be able to force him to use a weapon. However, when faced with Chu Kuangren's guqin music that was about to play, he decisively took out the iron staff. Even so, he still felt a little uneasy. 7th movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords. Heavenly and earthly reverberation. With a soft yell, the Guqin music suddenly erupted. Waves of Guqin music that contained a majestic Taoist rhyme rushed out. At that moment, the wind and clouds surged and the sun and moon lost their colors. Thunder rumbled in the sky and the ground trembled violently. It was as if the heavens and the earth were accompanying the Guqin music. Heavenly and earthly reverberation. The terrifying Guqin music swept out wave after wave. Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang, the third prefect, and the other sages were instantly swept away. Just the aftermath of the Guqin music alone was enough to injure them considerably. They looked at Chu Kuangren, who was playing the Guqin, in horror. I can't believe he can play Guqin music of this level. What a terrifying Guqin Dao skill. Both the heavens and the earth were accompanying the Guqin music. Both the heavens and the earth were accompanying the Guqin music. The terrifying sound of the Guqin struck the first prefect one wave after another, causing his face to turn pale for a moment. Then he let out a long roar, and spiritual power surged as he waved the iron staff in his hand. Waves after waves of staff energy erupted and struck in all directions, clashing against Chu Kuangren's Guqin music. The collision of the two peerless energies affected everything within a 1,000-mile radius. Every living being was shocked and terrified by the power. Boom boom boom. The Guqin music and staff energy intertwined. In the end, Chu Kuangren spat out another mouthful of blood, and the first prefect was also blasted away by the Guqin music, crashing into a mountain. When he rushed out, his hair was already disheveled, his face was pale, and there was blood at the corner of his mouth. His entire person seemed to have aged a few times. A great sage is indeed a great sage. To be able to withstand my seventh movement. Then give my last movement a try, the great? Before Chu Kuangren could finish, the first prefect suddenly shouted, Chu Kuangren, I agree to your terms. The first prefect could not hold on any longer. The seventh movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords had already severely injured him. He could not even imagine if Chu Kuangren were to perform the 8th movement. Would he still be alive? Compared to his life, everything else seemed to be insignificant. Was it not just a public apology? Was it not enough for him to agree to it? From now on he would never provoke this lunatic again. Did he not care about his life at all? He even dared to use a technique like the 9 deaths blazing blood art so casually. Oh, you should have done this earlier. Chu Kuangren was stunned for a moment before he chuckled. The blood-colored flames on his body gradually dissipated as he deactivated the 9 deaths blazing blood art. Chapter 318. The first prefect was forced to agree to Chu Kuangren's terms. When the other sages saw this, they looked at each other in fear. Even a great sage had submitted to him. This Chu Kuangren was just too terrifying. Besides the first city, there's also the Sky Emperor Palace. Chu Kuangren looked at Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang and said. Hearing his words, Heavenly King Sage Zhang gritted his teeth. All right. There was nothing he could do. If the other party were to really go to the Sky Emperor Palace to wreak havoc, even if all the sages of the Sky Emperor Palace were to make a move, they would not be a match for him. Thinking of this, he could not help but feel a wave of sorrow in his heart. All of them had underestimated Chu Kuangren. Who would have thought that Chu Kuangren's combat strength would be so terrifying that even the combined forces of 6 sages could not suppress him? Even the great sage had appeared, but he still had to admit defeat. When the cultivators in the first city saw this, they could not help but feel their hearts racing as they stared at the white-robed figure in the sky. After causing a ruckus, he was able to escape unscathed. He had even forced the first city and the Sky Emperor Palace to publicly apologize. How many people in the world could achieve such a magnificent feat? Unique in this world, unique in this world. Tianjizi shook his head and sighed. Then he looked into the distance and murmured, the unknown lands must be having a headache now that such a person has appeared. Looking at the time, it's about time for them to send people into the world. High in the sky. Chu Kuangren had single-handedly forced the Sky Emperor Palace and the first city to back down. He then put away his Guqin and sword case. His spiritual sense swept across the first city and soon found Lan Yu, Nangong Huang and the others. He turned into a stream of light and appeared in front of everyone. Sect leader, are you all right? Everyone hurried forward to welcome them. What could possibly happen to me? Chu Kuangren chuckled. Sect leader, you don't have to do this for us. Nangong Huang still wanted to say something. Chu Kuangren immediately slapped him on the head and interrupted him. Don't waste your breath. I'm not only doing this for you guys, I'm doing this for the entire Black Heaven sect as well as myself. If I don't vent my anger, I won't feel comfortable. Hearing this, the others looked at each other in dismay. They knew that Chu Kuangren was just saying that to let them not take it to heart, but how could they not take it to heart when it was something like this? They were moved to the bottom of their hearts and secretly swore to pledge their lives to the Black Heaven sect. They were willing to go through fire and water for Chu Kuangren without any regrets. The championship had ended, but Chu Kuangren and the others did not leave. They lived in the Four Seas restaurant. The next day, a notice appeared in the First City Central Plaza. On it was written that the Sky Emperor Palace and the First City had secretly colluded against the Black Heaven sect. There were also the seals of both major forces on it. The Sky Emperor Palace and the First City had publicly apologized. Countless people surrounded the central square. Looking at the notice, they couldn't help but be dumbfounded. Two top-notch sage orthodoxies had never publicly apologized to another orthodoxy like today. No, let alone these two top-notch sage orthodoxies. Even the other sage orthodoxies had not done something like this. This could be said to be the first time. TSK, this time, the Sky Emperor Palace and the First City's reputation can be said to have hit rock bottom. How shameless. I can't believe there was such a shameful inside story in this championship. What's even more shocking is that the Black Heaven sect still managed to clinch the championship despite being targeted like this. Yeah, this is unbelievable. No wonder Chu Kuangren fought with so many sages and even destroyed a few islands. So it was because of this matter. One notice caused an uproar in the city. Everyone on the streets was talking about this matter. The news of the two orthodoxies cheating in the championship and being forced to publicly apologize also spread like wildfire. Soon, every orthodoxy in the Firmament Star had received the news. However, compared to that, what they were more concerned about was Chu Kuangren could suppress a great sage. At that moment, Chu Kuangren's name struck fear in all the orthodoxies. Even the sages behind him did not want to provoke him anymore. Vaguely, Chu Kuangren already had the aura of invincibility. The Four Seas restaurant was crowded with people. That was because two people had suddenly arrived at this place. They were the First City's 13th prefect and the Sky Emperor Palace's palace lord. No matter where they were well-known figures. However, at that moment, both of them were standing in front of a young man. They did not dare to show the slightest bit of disrespect. The young man was dressed in a white, wide-sleeved robe. He had an otherworldly appearance and an extraordinary aura, which dazzled many female cultivators at the scene. Sect Leader Chu, this is the First City's apology. Please accept it. The 13th prefect took out a yin and yang ring and said, they were here to apologize for cheating in the championship. Beside him, the Sky Emperor Palace Lord also took out a yin and yang ring and handed it over. Although he was reluctant, he could not do anything about it. Chu Kuangren's strength was there for all to see. Who would dare to be unconvinced? Chu Kuangren took the two yin and yang rings and said, the people you should apologize to are not me, but the people who participated in the championship. The Sky Emperor Palace Lord and the 13th prefect looked at each other. They took a deep breath and looked at Nangong Huang and the others. They then walked up to them and bowed. This youth tournament has caused you to suffer unfair treatment. I would like to express my apologies and seek your forgiveness. The same goes for me. I'm truly sorry. Nangong Huang and the others had never encountered such a thing before. An honorable supreme, the leader of an orthodoxy, bowed and apologized to them. No one would believe such a thing even if they told others. It was too shocking. Alright, this matter shall end here. Go back and tell your sage that I'll be visiting the Sky Emperor Palace in a few days. Chu Kuangren said to the Sky Emperor Palace Lord. Upon hearing that, the Sky Emperor Palace Lord was scared out of his wits. Sect Leader Chu, are you trying to kill us all? What do you mean by kill us all? Chu Kuangren was stunned too. He was only going to visit them. Why was he trying to kill them all? Then why did you come to the Sky Emperor Palace? Why? Are you trying to go back on your word? You promised to open up all cultivation techniques to me. Are you going to move here if I don't go? Chu Kuangren said calmly. Upon hearing that, the Sky Emperor Palace Lord finally understood. So that was what it was about. He could not be blamed for overthinking things. After all, none of the orthodoxies that Chu Kuangren visited ended up well. The Murong clan and the Shang clan were still fresh in his mind. Moreover, the Sky Emperor Palace still dared to offend Chu Kuangren. Now that he said he was going to visit them, who could stand it? Although the Sky Emperor Palace Lord was reluctant to open up all cultivation techniques, It was still acceptable compared to letting Chu Kuangren wreak havoc in the Sky Emperor Palace and wreak havoc in the place. "I'll tell the sage about it," the Sky Emperor Palace Lord said. "Alright then. Let's leave it at that. Lan Yu, send them off," Chu Kuangren said. After sending them off, Lan Yu returned and asked, "Master, when do you plan to go to the Sky Emperor Palace?" "In 2 days. I remember that the Sky Emperor Palace is not far from the first city. I'll go there first before returning to the Black Heaven sect." 2 days later, Chu Kuangren took out the elusive mirage and left the first city for the Sky Emperor Palace. Looking at the elusive mirage from afar, the prefects of the first city heaved a sigh of relief. They had finally sent that lunatic away. Chapter 319. Sky Emperor Palace. It was the top sage orthodoxy in the White Tiger domain. Its status was similar to that of the Overlord Sage tribe in the Black Warrior domain. Basically, no one dared to provoke them. However, today, every cultivator in the Sky Emperor Palace looked solemn. Even the Sky Emperor Palace Lord looked like he was facing a formidable enemy. That was because someone was coming to the Sky Emperor Palace today. "He's here." The Sky Emperor Palace Lord looked into the distance. Amidst the sea of clouds, a huge black fairy boat soared into the sky like an ancient beast, giving off an immense pressure. When they thought about the person on the fairy boat, the Sky Emperor Palace Lord and the others looked at the elusive mirage, feeling even more pressured. Not long after, 2 figures came down from the elusive mirage. It was a man and a woman. It was Chu Kuangren and Lan Yu. The crowd could not help but exclaim at the sight of them. They were probably the top 2 young people in the world. Needless to say, not even a great sage could do anything to Chu Kuangren. Lan Yu, on the other hand, was extraordinary as well. She had defeated the strongest young Emperor Chang Tian in the Sky Pride Championship, so her strength was well known. "Sect Leader Chu, you're here." The Sky Emperor Palace Lord went up to them and greeted them politely. Chu Kuangren nodded. "Is the Sky Emperor Palace's cultivation technique ready?" "Sect Leader Chu, are you going to see it now?" "Yes, I'll head back once I'm done. I don't think the Sky Emperor Palace has any intention to entertain me." Chu Kuangren smiled. What kind of joke was that? The people of the Sky Emperor Palace could not wait for him to leave. "Alright then. Please follow me, Sect Leader Chu." The Sky Emperor Palace Lord brought Chu Kuangren to a pavilion, which was where all the Sky Emperor Palace's cultivation techniques were kept. Lan Yu returned to the elusive mirage first. "I'll be out soon." "Yes, Master." The Sky Emperor Palace Lord's mouth twitched. "Soon? What does that mean? Are you looking down on the Sky Emperor Palace's cultivation techniques? Do you think you can learn all of them in one go?" "I've long heard that Chu Kuangren is an arrogant person, and it seems like I'm right." The Sky Emperor Palace has more than 1,000 cultivation techniques, and they're all top-notch in the Firmament Star. To think that they're coming out so quickly. You're making a joke out of the Sky Emperor Palace's cultivation techniques. The Sky Emperor Palace is really unlucky to have provoked this person." As the few elders watched Chu Kuangren walk into the pavilion, they could not help but mutter to themselves. Of course, it was only in their minds. They did not dare to say it out loud in front of Chu Kuangren. Just as Chu Kuangren entered the pavilion, 3 sages were gathered in the depths of the Sky Emperor Palace. Heavenly Emperor Sage Jianghu was among them. Rumor has it that when this person was at the Dharma sect, he was able to comprehend 8,000 techniques in half a day. His enlightenment has reached an unimaginable level. Comprehending all 8,000 techniques in half a day. Since he said that he would come out soon, I guess he really has the confidence to comprehend all the cultivation techniques in the Sky Emperor Palace in a short period of time. This young man's talent is too extraordinary. Don't forget there is still a scroll inside. At this moment, Heavenly King Sage Jianghu said indifferently. Hearing this, the eyes of the other 2 sages lit up. "The scroll that we've labeled as taboo is also inside? Not bad." Heavenly Emperor Sage Jianghu nodded slightly. "That scroll is too strange. Anyone who tries to comprehend it will either die of mental exhaustion or suffer from chi deviation. Even though I tried to comprehend it with the cultivation of a sage, I nearly succumbed to it. I believe that no matter how high Chu Kuangren's enlightenment is, he will still be at a disadvantage in front of that scroll." A cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Chu Kuangren had caused the Sky Emperor Palace to suffer such a huge setback. Not only did he have to apologize and compensate them, he even owed them billions of soul stones. How could he let Chu Kuangren take away the Sky Emperor Palace's cultivation techniques without a hitch? Sage Zhang, aren't you afraid that Chu Kuangren won't be affected by the scroll and will come after you instead? One of the sages said with a frown. Chu Kuangren's combat strength was too terrifying. They did not want to fight him anymore as it would not benefit them at all. Don't you worry. Although I've placed that scroll inside, I've also marked out its danger and warned people not to comprehend it. But who do you think Chu Kuangren is? He's one of the best sky prides in the world. All sky prides are prideful. How could he not be interested in that scroll? The more we mark out its danger, the more curious he will be. Hence, he will definitely try to comprehend it. However, if something goes wrong, he can only blame himself for not listening to our advice. What does it have to do with our Sky Emperor Palace? Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang said confidently. The other two sages looked at each other and laughed out loud. That's right. It'll be best if he goes berserk. If he's lucky enough to escape, we can't be blamed. That makes sense. The three sages were ready to watch a good show. At that moment, inside the pavilion, Chu Kuangren was reading through the various cultivation techniques of the Sky Emperor Palace. Activating his meditational clarity attribute, he quickly comprehended all the cultivation techniques and integrated them into his transcendent coalescence Taoist physique. Under such circumstances, his transcendent coalescence Taoist physique was constantly improving and evolving. The transcendent coalescence Taoist physique was a very terrifying Taoist physique. Its unique characteristic was that the more cultivation techniques the possessor knew, the more terrifying the power of the transcendent coalescence Taoist physique would be. With this characteristic, even the chaos physique, the heavenly divine imperial physique, which was ranked first and second, could not compare to it. However, there was a limit to a person's energy. No matter how high one's level of understanding was, how many techniques could one comprehend in one lifetime? That was why the transcendent coalescence Taoist physique was ranked third. However, it was different in Chu Kuangren's hands. With the help of his meditational clarity attribute, the speed at which he learned the cultivation techniques was so terrifying that it was unparalleled in history. The transcendent coalescence Taoist physique could be used to its fullest potential. In the future, it could even surpass the chaos physique and the heavenly golden imperial physique. Mystical techniques, supreme techniques, sage techniques. Chu Kuangren comprehended the Sky Emperor Palace's cultivation techniques one by one. Soon he arrived at the top floor. The place was empty except for a wooden box. There was even a seal on it that said, "Forbidden magic, do not comprehend it." Chu Kuangren was stunned. He stepped forward and easily tore off the seal. Are you kidding me? This forbidden technique doesn't have any restrictions at all, and all it takes is 2 pieces of paper? You're obviously trying to trick me. Chu Kuangren curled his lips, but after some thought he still opened the wooden box. Now that you mention it, I'm really interested. Inside the wooden box was a scroll. When Chu Kuangren opened the scroll, he saw black runes engraved on it. A strange energy seeped out from it and attacked Chu Kuangren's mind. The countless runes in front of him were like little tadpoles swimming around, so he could not see what was written on it at all. Child's play. Chu Kuangren chuckled and calmed his mind. With the rocksteady Taoist core, he quickly resisted that strange energy. Then he began to comprehend the scroll. A mysterious Taoist rhyme surged into his mind. Even with the help of his meditational clarity attribute, Chu Kuangren still felt a little difficult. A cultivation technique that even the meditational clarity attribute feels a little difficult. Interesting. No wonder the Sky Emperor Palace listed it as a forbidden technique. Chapter 320. The Sky Emperor Palace's forbidden scroll piqued Chu Kuangren's interest. He sat down with his legs crossed and began to gain insights. This scroll was extraordinary, and the Taoist rhymes it contained were so profound that one could not help but be immersed in it. Choosing a cultivation technique did not mean that the more profound it was, the better. There had to be a limit to it. If one were to choose a cultivation technique that was too profound and could not be understood by oneself, then one might not be able to achieve anything in one's lifetime. The Sky Emperor Palace's forbidden scroll was such a cultivation technique. This cultivation technique was more profound than any that Chu Kuangren had ever seen before. If other cultivators tried to gain insights from it, they would not be able to succeed. Besides, this scroll also contained a demonic aura. Anyone who tried to gain insights from this cultivation technique would be easily attracted by its mysteries and become immersed in it. Cultivators with a slightly weaker Taoist core, even honorable supremes, might die from mental exhaustion. Sky Emperor Palace. The three sages were all watching Chu Kuangren. They could not help but be delighted when they saw that he had begun to gain insights from the forbidden scroll. Ha, he's fallen for it. Let's see what he's going to do now. Oh Chu Kuangren, you've already written that it's a forbidden scroll, yet you still want to gain insights from it. You're doomed today because of your own arrogance. Heavenly Emperor Sage Jiang laughed out loud. He could not wait to see Chu Kuangren suffer a setback and be unable to do anything to him. Time passed and soon an hour had passed. Chu Kuangren was still on the top floor trying to gain insights from the scroll. The three sages were sure that he was already immersed in it. Even an honorable supreme would die from mental exhaustion after 3 days of studying this scroll. Even if Chu Kuangren is as powerful as a sage, he can only last 10 days at most. If he doesn't break free from the mysteries of the scroll within 10 days, he will die from mental exhaustion. Heavenly Emperor Sage Jiang smiled. 4 hours passed. Chu Kuangren still did not move. 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours passed. Just as Chu Kuangren was trying to gain insights from the Sky Emperor Palace's forbidden scroll, a huge wave suddenly surged above the firmament star's ocean. A huge island appeared out of thin air above the ocean. A beam of colorful light suddenly shot into the sky and reached the clouds. An extremely vast Taoist rhyme spread out from this colorful light. All of a sudden, all the sages in the entire firmament star felt it. This Taoist rhyme actually contains the Emperor's aura. It's from overseas. An island that has never been seen before? Moreover, it even contains the pressure of an emperor. Could it be that this island is the residence of an emperor? According to the records, there are only a few emperors living overseas. White-robed emperor, willow emperor, or blue sky emperor. There must be great opportunities on this island. Send someone to investigate immediately. The appearance of the nameless island in the sea shook the entire firmament star. Streaks of light streaked across the sea. Among them, the 36 oceanic islands were the first to receive the news. They sent people to seal off the island in an attempt to monopolize the treasures on the island. As a result, they had many disputes with the sage orthodoxies of the 4 regions. Within the Sky Emperor Palace, Heavenly King Sage Jiang and the others naturally knew that the nameless island had appeared out of thin air and was suspected to be the former residence of an emperor. At this moment they also planned to rush forward to take a look. After all, opportunities related to emperors were something that even sages would be extremely tempted by. What should we do about Chu Kuangren then? One of the Sky Emperor Palace's sages suddenly asked. Leave one person here to look after him. Who should stay then? The 3 sages looked at each other. No one wanted to miss out on an opportunity that might be related to an emperor. How about rock, paper, scissors? One of the sages said. The other 2 sages rolled their eyes. Using rock, paper, scissors to decide such an important matter? Are you out of your mind? Just when the 3 of them were hesitating, a terrifying surge of Taoist rhyme that contained some kind of emperor's aura swept out from the Sky Emperor Palace. What's going on? This aura, it's Chu Kuangren? The 3 sages' expressions changed and their figures instantly disappeared. When they arrived above the pavilion, they looked at Chu Kuangren, who was sitting cross-legged in shock. This surge of Taoist rhyme is the same as the one on that scroll. Don't tell me he really managed to gain insight into the technique on that scroll? That's impossible. Chu Kuangren slowly opened his eyes. He stood up, raised his fair arm and slowly pointed a finger at the void. A black finger chi pierced through the air. The finger chi transformed into a giant finger that pointed at the sea of clouds. In an instant, the void rumbled and the sea of clouds shattered. From that finger, the 3 sages felt an inexplicable sense of fear, which shocked them to their core. After all, that finger chi was not targeted at them. If they were targeted, how terrifying would that be? The 3 of them did not dare to imagine. I can't believe he really managed to gain insight into the technique on that scroll. There's a surge of Emperor's aura within it. It's an Emperor technique. By the heavens, how did he do it? Heavenly Emperor Sage Jiang had a complicated look in his eyes. That scroll had been in the Sky Emperor Palace for a very long time, but no one had ever managed to gain any insight from it. A lot of cultivators had died because of that scroll. Even Heavenly Emperor Sage Jiang himself almost fell for it. Yet now, a cultivator who was not from the Sky Emperor Palace had managed to gain insight into the technique on that scroll. That made him feel extremely frustrated. It was as if that scroll was originally prepared for Chu Kuangren, and they were merely keeping it safe on his behalf. They did not even have to pay for its safekeeping. Not only that, but they had also lost many cultivators' lives. Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang's expression kept changing. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. He felt as if a mountain was pressing down on his chest, and he immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. Sage Zhang. Quick, calm your Taoist core. Don't overthink it. The two sages beside him quickly said as their expressions changed. Naturally, they knew what Sage Zhang was thinking. Even they had the urge to vomit blood, let alone Sage Zhang. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have put that scroll in there. Chu Kuangren would have gotten an emperor technique for nothing. Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang's face was pale as he gritted his teeth and said. He was so angry. Initially, he wanted to trick Chu Kuangren, but he did not expect that he would end up with such a great opportunity of fortune for Chu Kuangren. The other two sages looked at each other and smiled bitterly. You can't be blamed for this. Who knew that he could really gain insight into that technique? This kid can't be measured with common sense. Indeed. Inside the pavilion, Chu Kuangren looked at the scroll in his hand and smiled. The heart-piercing finger is a good emperor technique. Moreover, this emperor technique is only 1/9 of a cultivation technique. There are 8 other copies of the same scroll, and each of them contains an emperor technique. Only when all 9 emperor techniques are combined will this mysterious technique reveal its true form. Chu Kuangren murmured. That was the information he obtained after gaining insight into the heart-piercing finger. The emperor technique was already the most powerful technique in the history of the firmament star. It was hard to imagine what level the 9 great emperor techniques would be when they were combined. Could it be related to those illusory immortals? Chu Kuangren secretly made a mental note of that as he planned to keep an eye on the whereabouts of the other scrolls. Chapter 321. When Chu Kuangren walked out of the pavilion, the Sky Emperor Palace Lord, the group of elders, and even the sages looked at him in shock. Obviously, the fact that Chu Kuangren had learned the heart-piercing finger had shocked them, especially the sages. That was an emperor technique. They had given it away just like that. Sect leader Chu, I wonder how you managed to learn this emperor technique? One of the sages could not help but ask. He was too curious. How did Chu Kuangren do it when no one from the Sky Emperor Palace had been able to learn the secret of that scroll for so many years? I can learn it if I want to. Chu Kuangren said calmly before he looked at Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang. Without another word, the long sword at his waist was unsheathed, and an extremely cold sword ray was unleashed along with the Emperor's aura. That sword ray was extremely powerful. It was the Emperor technique, Heaven-Slaying Sword Drawing Technique. What? Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang's expression suddenly turned into one of extreme horror. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that Chu Kuangren would attack just like that. Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang used all his strength to block the attack. However, that terrifying sword ray was extremely fast, and with the help of the Descendant Self-Sword, even Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang was severely injured in an instant. The sudden turn of events made the other two Sky Emperor Palace sages' expressions change as they glared at Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren, what are you doing? D*MN. Chu Kuangren ignored them and immediately used his Sage Ruler technique, Phantom Light Strike, to appear before Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang. With a lift of his arm, a majestic Buddhist light emanated and transformed into a giant golden hand that slammed Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang into the ground. The terrifying energy shook the entire Sky Emperor Palace, and a huge crater was formed on the ground. Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang lay in the crater, vomiting blood continuously. What are you doing? Chu Kuangren's body emanated a terrifying Sword Dao aura as he said, I'm sure you know how strange that scroll is. Do you really think I don't know what you're up to? I've already written that it's a forbidden technique. With just those 2 pieces of paper. Chu Kuangren chuckled. Do you think that just by writing 2 pieces of paper, you can shirk all responsibility for your scheme against me? First, you bribed the first city to go against the Black Heaven sect, and now you're playing these petty tricks in front of me. It's not easy to cultivate to become a sage, but you've been courting death time and again. Even the heavenly Tao can't save you now. At that, Chu Kuangren swung the Descendant Self-Sword in his hand once again, and an extremely violent sword chi instantly engulfed Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang. The sage's body was instantly torn apart by the sword chi. Heavenly King Sage Zhang was dead. Chu Kuangren. How dare you? Damn it. The expressions of the other 2 Sky Emperor Palace sages changed drastically. They roared angrily and joined forces to attack with a punch and a palm. The violent power was actually at the level of a 7-step saint. However, a blood-red flame erupted from Chu Kuangren's body. The 9 deaths blazing blood art, which was considered a taboo by countless cultivators, had been activated. He slashed out with his sword and a vast sword light surged out. It actually shattered the palm and fist, and even sent the 2 saints flying back 1,000 feet. The 2 sages stared at Chu Kuangren in shock. They were both 7-step sages, and yet they were repelled by a single sword attack from Chu Kuangren. What kind of horrifying combat strength was that? Chu Kuangren, why did you kill Sage Zhang? One of the sages asked angrily. Let me ask you something first. What would happen if someone else were to study that scroll? Chu Kuangren asked calmly. The 2 sages' expressions changed slightly. They knew very well how evil that scroll was. If it was light, it could lead to qi deviation. If it was heavy, it could lead to death from mental exhaustion. Chu Kuangren chuckled when he saw the 2 sages' expressions. It seems like both of you know very well that he should be killed for plotting against me, not to mention what happened in the competition. He could already kill Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang back when he was in the first city. No. If he were to go all out, it was not impossible for him to kill all the sages who joined in the attack that day. However, other than those sages, there were many other sages from other orthodoxies as well. Moreover, Lan Yu, Nangong Huang, and the others were also in the first city. Hence, he had to restrain himself. However, Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang had plotted against him again today. If he did not kill him now, he would not be Chu Kuangren anymore. But that scroll clearly states that it's a forbidden technique. You were the one who wanted to use it, so how can you blame us for that? One of the sages said angrily. Then you should be thankful that you wrote those 2 pieces of paper. If it weren't for those 2 pieces of paper, you wouldn't be alive now. Chu Kuangren sneered. Those 2 pieces of paper did not have any seals on them at all. It was obvious that they were meant to trick him. The 2 sages were completely dumbfounded. How can there be such an unreasonable person in this world? How can there be such an unscrupulous person? Chu Kuangren, your bloodthirst will not be tolerated by the heavens. One day karma will strike you and you'll regret it. One of the sages was so angry that his body was trembling. Upon hearing that, Chu Kuangren chuckled. Karma? Since you're talking about karma, then let me tell you something. Sage Zhang has his own path to death. Him plotting against me is the cause and me killing him is the effect. How is this karma? Even if there's karma, so what? If the heavens wish to punish me, then I shall defy them. With that, Chu Kuangren turned around and left. The 2 sages were helpless as they stared at his back. Kill him? They were no match for him at all. Reason? Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang was in the wrong in the first place. Oh Sage Zhang, if you knew this would happen, you wouldn't have done it in the first place. The person you've offended can't be measured with common sense. Ordinary people's tricks were useless against Chu Kuangren. The Sky Emperor Palace Lord looked at Chu Kuangren with tears streaming down his face. Didn't he say that he was only here to look at the cultivation techniques? Why did he kill another sage? If I knew this would happen, I would rather give all the cultivation techniques to Chu Kuangren than let him come to the Sky Emperor Palace. As expected, wherever Chu Kuangren goes there will be chaos. Chu Kuangren returned to the elusive mirage. Lan Yu and the others had been waiting there for a long time. Sect leader, Elder Rian just sent a message. She wants you to return as soon as possible to discuss the nameless island in the outer seas. Nangong Huang said. Chu Kuangren was slightly surprised. What island? He was so focused on gaining insights into the heart-piercing finger that he did not know that the firmament star was in an uproar because of the nameless island in the outer seas. Nangong Huang briefly explained the incident. Oh, I didn't know something like that happened in the outer seas. Chu Kuangren's interest was piqued. He then rode the elusive mirage back to the Black Heaven sect. Once he returned, Elder Rian and the others came to find him. Sect leader, the news of you wreaking havoc in the first city has spread throughout the firmament star. Why can't you have peace wherever you go? Elder Rian said helplessly. How can you blame me? They were the ones who started it. Chu Kuangren said innocently. Chu Kuangren's principle had always been that he would not offend others if they did not offend him. If the first city did not go after him, why would he go after them? Ah, the sect leader did the right thing. Elder Rian blamed the first city and the Sky Emperor Palace for this. One of the elders laughed. Elder Rian shook her head. I don't blame you, sect leader. Alright, let's talk about the outer seas first. Chapter 322. Now that the Outer Seas Island has been sealed by the 36 oceanic islands. Other than sages, no one else is allowed to enter. Third forefather, second forefather has gone to investigate, but there's been no news yet. Elder Rian briefly told him about the nameless island in the outer seas. Chu Kuangren could not help but feel curious when he heard that. The unnamed island that is suspected to be the residence of an emperor, and the 36 oceanic islands? Interesting, I should go and explore. Since the 36 oceanic islands have sealed it, the rest of you shall stay in the sect. I'll go and see what's going on. Chu Kuangren had made up his mind. The 36 oceanic islands was the collective name of the orthodoxies. Many of the 36 oceanic islands were no weaker than the sage orthodoxies of the four domains. Together they were a force to be reckoned with. Moreover, the 36 oceanic islands were the home of the 36 oceanic islands. With them sealing the unnamed island, it would be difficult for the sage orthodoxies of the four domains to intervene. No matter how arrogant the 36 oceanic islands were, they could not possibly stop all the sages from entering the island. That would be no different from declaring war on the sage orthodoxies of the four domains. By the way, Elder Rian, here are some IOUs. If the owner of these IOUs does not pay up within a month, send them a notice. If they still don't pay up, we'll talk about it when I return. Chu Kuangren took out a stack of IOUs and handed it to Elder Rian. Elder Rian looked at the stack of IOUs in her hand. IOUs? There are so many of them. She looked at the number on the card and her eyes widened, her face full of shock. The Taoist School of Dedication owes us 200 million top-tier soul stones, the 8-Wind Palace owes us 50 million top-tier soul stones, the Thunder Falcon Tribe owes us 450 million. Oh my God. Sect leader, what have you done? Elder Rian looked at Chu Kuangren in disbelief. The other elders were also dumbfounded when they saw the numbers on the IOUs. These are the stakes. You can ask Nangong Huang and the others for the details. Alright, I'll take my leave now. Chu Kuangren then left the Black Heaven sect alone. He did not even bring Lan Yu, who had always been by his side. The situation on the unnamed island was still unknown, and most of the people who were heading there were sages. It was not something that an ordinary cultivator could interfere with. If he brought others along, Chu Kuangren was worried that he would not be able to take care of them if anything happened. Overseas on a nameless island. Because it was sealed off by the 36 oceanic islands, there were countless immortal boats and countless checkpoints within a radius of tens of thousands of miles. All cultivators passing through this area would be stopped and interrogated. For those who insisted on barging in, the cultivators from the 36 oceanic islands would kill them on the spot. They were extremely overbearing. With Chu Kuangren's cultivation level, he was not afraid of being discovered by these outer seas cultivators. He turned into a stream of light and dashed towards the unnamed island. Along the way he was almost unimpeded, because no one could catch up to him. The closer Chu Kuangren got, the more he could sense a powerful surge of Taoist rhyme. It was an extremely dense emperor's aura. Very soon. Then he saw a huge island. The island was shrouded in clouds and mist, making it impossible to see its face clearly. However, some of the scenes that were vaguely revealed were already like a fairyland. Apart from that, the island was also the source of the emperor's aura. This is the nameless island. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up. However, just as he was about to approach, an invisible barrier suddenly appeared in front of him, blocking his path. An enchanted boundary? Just as Chu Kuangren was puzzled, a few figures suddenly appeared in front of him. These people all had extraordinary auras. Even the weakest among them was at the honorable level. This area has been sealed by the 36 oceanic islands. All cultivators below the sage level must leave immediately, the leading elder said. He glanced at Chu Kuangren and frowned. Although Chu Kuangren looked extraordinary, he was too young. Forget a sage, he suspected that Chu Kuangren was not even an honorable. How did someone like him enter this place? Were the patrolling teams at the outer perimeter useless? Oh, the 36 oceanic islands. Chu Kuangren activated his Eye of Revelation and scanned the few people before him. Liao Yun, Ethereal Island Lord, Honorable Supreme. Chu Shan, Thousand Rock Island Cultivator, Honorable Supreme. These people were all the higher-ups of the 36 oceanic islands, and there was even an island lord among them, especially the leading elder Liao Yun. As the Ethereal Island Lord, his status was no less than a sect leader of a sage orthodoxy. I am the Black Heaven sect leader, Chu Kuangren. Please make way. Chu Kuangren said. The few people looked at each other when they heard his name. Liao Yun frowned and said, I don't care who you are. If you're not a sage, leave. Chu Kuangren was stunned. No way, there are still people who don't know me? Just how isolated is the 36 oceanic islands? You don't even know me? Chu Kuangren said in surprise. Are you famous? One of the cultivators asked. Chu Kuangren was speechless. He heard that the outer seas cultivators rarely communicated with the four domains. Some of them would only receive news once every few decades. He did not expect that to be true. He had only become famous in the past few years. Everyone in the four domains knew about him, but not many people in the outer seas knew about him. Do I have to force my way in? Chu Kuangren's gaze turned cold as he unconsciously placed his hand on the hilt of his descendant self-sword. At that moment, Liao Yun and the others felt their scalps go numb as a chill surged through their limbs. A great enemy. Liao Yun and the others' expressions became extremely solemn. Just when Chu Kuangren was about to force his way in, a ray of light suddenly appeared not far away. It was an old man dressed in purple robes with a stern expression. Liao Yun and the others' expressions changed when they saw this person. Greetings, Lifeblood Sage. Liao Yun and the others stepped forward and bowed. Compared to Chu Kuangren, this Lifeblood Sage had become famous thousands of years ago. His fame was so great that everyone knew him back then. Yes. Lifeblood Sage nodded slightly. He glanced at Chu Kuangren, and when he saw his face clearly, his expression changed slightly as he quickly went forward to greet him. Greetings, Brother Chu. I'm the sage of the Jianghu Valley, Lifeblood Sage. Lifeblood Sage smiled. A fellow Taoist from the Jianghu Valley. Greetings. I didn't expect Brother Chu to come to the outer seas to explore the nameless island so soon after returning from the first city. Why don't we go together? Lifeblood Sage said. He knew that Chu Kuangren was incredibly powerful, so exploring the nameless island with him would definitely be a win-win situation. One could even say that he was trying to ride on Chu Kuangren's coattails. I'd love to, but these outer seas cultivators said that only sages can enter, so they won't let me in. What? How can something like that happen? Lifeblood Sage's expression darkened. He looked at Liao Yun and the others and said, Brother Chu may not be a sage, but his strength is stronger than a sage's. He definitely has the right to enter. Get out of the way. Are you kidding me? How dare you block Chu Kuangren's way? Do you want to live? Chapter 323. Liao Yun and the others were dumbfounded. What kind of ability did this young man have that even a sage had to treat him with such respect? Even other sages would not be this respectful. What kind of existence did they just stop? Sect leader Chu, please forgive us for offending you earlier. Liao Yun and the others were not stupid. Of course, they knew that someone that Lifeblood Sage would treat with such respect was not a simple character. His background might be even more terrifying than an ordinary sage. At times like this, they had to be afraid. Can I go in now? Please. Liao Yun did not dare to stop them. He quickly opened the enchanted boundary and let Chu Kuangren and Lifeblood Sage in. On the unnamed island, Chu Kuangren and Lifeblood Sage had arrived. As soon as they set foot on the island, a vast emperor's aura enveloped them and suppressed their strength. Such a strong emperor's aura. It seems that this place really is the residence of an emperor, Lifeblood Sage said in surprise. Yes. Chu Kuangren nodded. He was glad that he did not bring anyone else with him. With such a strong emperor's aura, anyone below the level of a sage would find it hard to move, let alone explore the unnamed island with him. Chu Kuangren immediately activated his treasure locating skill the moment he stepped onto the island. This divine ability was the most suitable for searching for opportunities of fortune. Chu Kuangren was speechless as he searched. There were indeed many treasures here. Most of them were supreme elixirs that grew on the island, and even the most inferior ones were of the honorable grade. There were even sage-grade medicines that were rarely seen in the outside world. But at that moment, a strange fluctuation came from not far away. It was the fluctuation of a supreme elixir that contained a strong Taoist rhyme and wood-based energy. Lifeblood Sage was delighted when he sensed the fluctuation. That's great. I didn't expect to encounter such a supreme elixir the moment I arrived. Brother Chu, let's head over quickly, Lifeblood Sage said excitedly. Chu Kuangren pondered for a while before he said, Lifeblood Sage, this is the aura of some supreme elixir. I'm sure many sages have sensed it, and a battle is bound to break out. I don't want to waste my time here. I want to go take a look somewhere else. Lifeblood Sage was dumbfounded. What? Is Chu Kuangren afraid of a battle? He thought for a moment and felt that the other party should have his own plans, so he nodded. Then I'll go take a look myself. He still couldn't resist the temptation of that precious medicine. Judging from its aura, it was very likely to be a saint herb. Origin sage, be careful. Alright, take care, fellow Daoist Chu. After saying that, the vital essence sage skimmed in the direction of the supreme elixir. Chu Kuangren, on the other hand, dashed in another direction. There was also a stock of saint medicine there. Moreover, this saint medicine was much more precious than the saint medicine that was giving off a strong aura. The sage-grade herb that the lifeblood sage sensed had just ascended, which was why it was emitting such a strong aura. On the other hand, the one that Chu Kuangren found with his treasure-locating skill had been a sage-grade herb for an unknown period of time. Not only that, but that newly upgraded precious medicine would definitely attract many saints. At that time it would be hard to avoid a battle. On the other hand, the sage-grade herb that Chu Kuangren had found with his treasure-locating skill had probably not been discovered by anyone yet, so it would not take much effort for him to obtain it. He did not tell Origin Essence Sage about this. After all, Chu Kuangren had the treasure-locating skill, which allowed him to locate all kinds of treasures in no time. If Lifeblood Sage continued to stay by his side, there would inevitably be a division of loot. If it was Chu Kuangren alone, he could monopolize everything. The human heart was always selfish. After all, Chu Kuangren was not a selfless person. Soon he arrived at a valley. On the mountain wall of this valley, there was a sage-grade herb that was golden in color and had mysterious Taoist rhymes on its leaves. It was a very mysterious sight. Chu Kuangren went to the mountain wall, plucked it and put it into his yin and yang ring. Easy peasy, a sage-grade herb in my hands. Chu Kuangren smirked. He was in a good mood, so he continued to search with his treasure-locating skill. Information about all kinds of treasures on the unnamed island was fed back into Chu Kuangren's mind. This was especially true in the center of the island, where several kinds of treasures were hidden that could trigger a strong reaction from the treasure-locating skill. 8,000 kilometers south, unknown Emperor-grade item. 8,000 kilometers south, unknown Emperor-grade item. It was Chu Kuangren's first time receiving information about an unknown Emperor-grade item, but he was able to make some guesses. There must be some kind of hidden treasure in the center of the island, which was why the treasure-locating skill could not accurately sense what it was. However, something that could be related to an emperor was definitely extraordinary. Chu Kuangren pondered for a while, but he was not in a hurry to go there. He figured that the other sages would not be able to find out if there was a technique that could isolate the treasure-locating skill from detection. He decided on a route and headed towards the center of the island while collecting other treasures on the island. Many sages were gathered on the unnamed island. Here, the sages were searching for all kinds of opportunities of fortune on the island, and the number of opportunities of fortune there was enough to amaze even the sages. This place must have been a place where an emperor lived. Due to the influence of the emperor's aura, it gave birth to many treasures. Because of one person, a treasure land was formed. Moreover, this was just the exposure of the emperor's aura. One could only imagine how powerful an emperor was. Of course, although there were many treasures, the competition was also extremely fierce. Moreover, it was a battle between sages. The scale of the battle was rarely seen since ancient times. While Chu Kuangren was collecting treasures, he saw sages fighting from time to time. The momentum of the battle was earth-shattering. In the outside world, sages were high and mighty, standing above billions of living beings. It was extremely difficult to even meet one, let alone fight. However, in this place sages were no different from ordinary people. For the sake of a treasure, there were many people who would fight to the death. Boom. Just as Chu Kuangren arrived at a cliff, he suddenly heard a huge commotion coming from not far away. It shook the entire mountain range. Needless to say, it was the sages fighting again. Chu Kuangren was not interested in these fights. He was still busy collecting the various treasures on the island. However, things did not go according to plan. Just when Chu Kuangren was about to collect the treasures and leave, a palm energy swept past him and hit the mountain wall. With a loud explosion, the mountain wall was instantly shattered. Chu Kuangren was unharmed, but the sage-grade supreme elixir that he was about to collect was destroyed by that palm attack. Although he already had a pile of sage-grade supreme elixirs in his yin and yang ring, he did not care about this sage-grade supreme elixir at all. However, it was something that he had his eyes on. Now that it was destroyed, he could not take it lying down. Chu Kuangren spread his spiritual thought. Let me see which B** star destroyed my supreme elixir. Soon, his spiritual thought arrived at the place where the sages were fighting. Although his spiritual thought was destroyed by the powerful shockwaves of the battle as soon as it got close, he could still see the faces of the two people. He was quite familiar with one of them. It's the School of White Lotus's sage. Looks like I can't just ignore this. Chu Kuangren murmured as his figure turned into a stream of light and dashed away. Chapter 324. The School of White Lotus and the Black Heaven sect were allies. Before Chu Kuangren had fully matured, an honorable supreme from the School of White Lotus had offered to protect him. Back in the first city, the School of White Lotus's sage had even publicly expressed her willingness to help Chu Kuangren fight against a few other sages. Now that the School of White Lotus's sage was in trouble, Chu Kuangren would not sit idly by. His figure turned into a stream of light and dashed towards her. At this time, in the sky above a valley, two sages were engaged in a battle. One was a man and the other was a woman. The woman was the School of White Lotus's sage. The man wore a set of black armor and held a long spear in his hand. His aura was unstoppable, and every thrust of his spear would form a terrifying black tornado that forced the School of White Lotus's sage to retreat. Immemorial Sage, you should just surrender. The Immemorial Sage was the title of the School of White Lotus's sage. The man in armor seemed to be very familiar with her. Ravenblade Sage, you want me to surrender? Dream on. The Immemorial Sage glared at the Ravenblade Sage coldly. She stared back at him with hatred in her eyes. The Ravenblade Sage grinned when he saw the hatred in his opponent's eyes. Looks like you're still holding a grudge against Chenin. Shut up. You have no right to mention her name. The Immemorial Sage said coldly. She waved her hand and unleashed a white ray of light, but it was easily shattered by the Ravenblade Sage. Why not? No matter what, she's still my wife. The Ravenblade Sage chuckled as if he was trying to provoke the Immemorial Sage. ****. Back when you and Chenin got married, you swore to me that you would take good care of her. But in the end, you sacrificed her to the so-called serpent deity just to become a sage. You deserve to die. The White Lotus Sage was furious. With a wave of her hand, rays of white light shot out from her palm. It was the School of White Lotus's light of purification. However, the Ravenblade Sage was obviously stronger. As he waved his spear, a black tornado surrounded his body and shattered the white light. Now that we're done reminiscing, it's time to end you. Don't worry, I'll bring your corpse back. The next time we sacrifice it to the serpent deity, your sage body will be the best sacrifice. The Ravenblade Sage burst into laughter as an extremely overbearing sage Taoist rhyme erupted from his body. Black Snake Devour. As he struck out with his spear, his boundless Taoist rhymes mixed with his spiritual power transformed into a ferocious-looking black snake shadow that charged towards the Immemorial Sage. In the face of this attack, Immemorial Sage would not be able to withstand it. At this moment, white lotuses suddenly surrounded the Immemorial Sage, containing some sort of powerful purifying power. They disintegrated the Ravenblade Sage's attacks one by one, leaving the Immemorial Sage unharmed. What? The Ravenblade Saint's expression changed drastically. You've learned the White Lotus light of purification left behind by the White Lotus Saint ruler? He had some understanding of the White Lotus Society. He knew that these White Lotuses were the White Lotus Society's supreme defensive technique, the White Lotus light of purification. No, you didn't do this. Soon, the Ravenblade Sage realized that the Taoist rhyme of the White Lotuses did not come from the Immemorial Sage. Instead, it came from someone else. The Immemorial Sage seemed to have thought of something, and she could not help but smile. Ravenblade Sage, your doomsday is here. She turned around and looked into the distance. All she saw was a white-robed, wide-sleeved figure walking through the air. That otherworldly aura of his made everything in the world pale in comparison to him. The Ravenblade Sage looked at the newcomer solemnly. Who are you? Immemorial Sage, I'm protecting you. Chu Kuangren said without hesitation. Just because you said so? You're looking down on me a little too much. The Ravenblade Sage raised his arm and attacked Chu Kuangren. With a thrust of his spear, a black tornado swept out. However, Chu Kuangren did not move an inch. Instead, mysterious white lotuses appeared around him, disintegrating the black tornado one by one. The White Lotus light of purification. Who are you to the School of White Lotus? The Ravenblade Sage's pupils dilated. Chu Kuangren had used the White Lotus light of purification to easily block his attacks. Even the immemorial sage could not compare to him in terms of ability. "Brother Chu, you mustn't let this person leave." The immemorial sage yelled with a deep hatred in her voice. Chu Kuangren was slightly surprised. It seemed that this sage had quite a grudge with the immemorial sage. "This is bad. Let's retreat first." The Ravenblade sage did not dare to stay any longer after he realized that Chu Kuangren was not an easy opponent. His figure turned into a shadow and disappeared on the spot. Trying to escape. Chu Kuangren chuckled. A black chain suddenly appeared in his hand. It was the soul retriever that he had not used for a long time. The soul retriever turned into a black ray of light. Its speed was even faster than the escaping Ravenblade sage. It did not take long for it to catch up to him. It wrapped around him tightly and dragged him back. D*Mnet, what is this thing? Let go of me. The Ravenblade sage continuously channeled his spiritual power to resist the soul retriever. However, it was futile. With Chu Kuangren's current cultivation level, even a sage would find it hard to escape once he was caught by the soul retriever. Only a great sage would have a chance of escaping. "Thank you, Brother Chu." The immemorial sage came before the Ravenblade sage with a deep hatred in her eyes. "I shall avenge Jianghu today." She raised her hand and slammed it onto the Ravenblade sage's body. The horrifying energy instantly sent the Ravenblade sage flying back with blood spewing out of his mouth. When he landed on the ground, a crater of a few dozen feet was formed. The immemorial sage was still not appeased. She came to the crater and continuously slammed her palm against the Ravenblade sage. One palm after another, a violent surge of palm chi spread out and expanded the crater to a few hundred feet wide. Chu Kuangren was speechless as he watched from the side. It seemed like there was a grudge between the two of them. However, he did not ask any questions nor did he stop the immemorial sage. On one side was an ally and on the other side was a stranger. It was obvious which side he should help. Under the restraint of the soul retriever, the Ravenblade sage could not resist at all. Soon he was beaten half to death. "Killing you just like that is too easy for you," the immemorial sage said coldly as she stared at the bloodied Ravenblade sage on the ground. Chu Kuangren gently tugged on the soul retriever from the side. The hook of the soul retriever pierced into the Ravenblade sage's body. After stirring it for a while, the Ravenblade sage's soul was hooked out. "This is his soul. Attacking his soul will make him suffer 100 times the pain," Chu Kuangren said. The immemorial sage's eyes lit up. "Thank you." "You're welcome." The Ravenblade sage glared at Chu Kuangren. I've never met you before. Why must you harm me like this? You scum, everyone has the right to punish you. The immemorial sage condensed her spiritual power into a white needle and ruthlessly pierced it into the Ravenblade sage's soul. The soul-piercing pain made the Ravenblade sage scream as his soul started to tremble violently. The immemorial sage did not stop there. The spiritual needles continued to pierce into the Ravenblade sage's soul. With every pierce, his soul would weaken a little. In the end, the Ravenblade sage was tortured to death by the immemorial sage. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.